Councillor Sargent, the meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
Thank you. Welcome to the council chamber. I think this is the third meeting we've had on Zoom. Welcome everybody. We start off with the declaration of interest.
Thank you.
Hello.
My groups, good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Hello.
My groups have no declarations of interest, and I'm sure Father Oliver Cost would like to have a word with that.
You're very welcome. Thank you, ma'am. Is Father Oliver now going to address us?
I am. Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Hello, sir. How are you? Lovely to see you.
I'm not bad. Good evening, councillors. Good evening, officers. It's good to see you all this evening. I've been walking around all of today with a disposable mobile phone. It's not a burner. It's not a burner phone. I've not been county lining, but I'm running on call for the chaplaincy at the General Hospital, where the chaplains are finally, after many months now, taking in a position where they can take some time off and recover. And it's been really good to talk to them about what the experience has been like over many weeks now, more than I think any of us ever thought right at the beginning of this crisis, about what their experiences have been, what they've endured, and about what it's been like for the hospital to start to see fewer patients in acute danger, and what it's been like to see the hospital return to something like normality. When I spoke to him, there was only one patient in ICU who's being had been ventilated for COVID reasons. But I wonder how, as we enter recovery, or as recovery continues, how we are feeling about that, how we are thinking about those who are contributing and what sort of contribution we're making to recovery, how we are thinking of those who are on the front lines at the moment of public health and those decisions that have to be made each and every day about easing or not easing, about locking down again, or about giving people back some sense of freedom to make their decisions, about those who have been making announcements today about vaccines, those from our own county who have been working so hard, those who have given heroically of themselves and are now finding some time for rest to return to their families, for those who continue to work in test stations or care for the sick. We pray for all who are more afraid now than perhaps they were during the harder period of lockdown, those afraid of losing their jobs or their businesses, for those afraid of losing their homes or their security, for those who are living daily with the scars of bereavement or of sickness. We pray this night for a clearer vision of mercy and love and goodness in our communities, for wisdom to serve it well, for strength to serve it unfailingly, for generosity to serve it constantly. I want to give you some words from a prayer of St. Thomas Aquinas. Give us, O Lord, a steadfast heart, which no unworthy thought can drag downwards, an unconquered heart which no tribulation can wear out, an upright heart which no unworthy purpose may tempt aside. Bestow upon us also, Lord our God, understanding to know thee, diligence to seek thee, wisdom to find thee, and a faithfulness that may finally embrace thee. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. May God bless you all. May his goodness rest upon your council this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Oliver. I think you went the full gambit on that, Oliver. I don't think you missed anybody out. As if you would.
I like to be inclusive.
Of course, that's the game. I've already asked declaration of interest. I don't think there is any, but I'm sure somebody will find one. No?
Nobody's indicating, Chair.
Thank you, Ma'am. I'm obliged to you. Minutes. Can I approve minutes of the meeting of council on the 15th of June, 2020?
Agreed.
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 Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm not listed as attending.
You're still trying to get in, Councillor Roberts?
No, I'm in, but I'm not
Good.
listed as attending in the last minutes.
I think it was a full house, wasn't it? Same as this time.
But the minutes don't reflect that. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm sure that can be added, ma'am. So we've got a full house again, have we?
Through you, Chair, no, not quite. There are not all councillors are present.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have no apologies. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Penny Flavel from us, our group.
Full house of the Liberal Democrats?
I believe so, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. So we're only one short tonight. That's very, very good. I've got an announcement this time, not as extensive as I would wish, or you would wish. We would like to send a letter from the council to offer our sincere thanks for each and every one of the 127 community and voluntary groups for their efforts during the COVID-19 pandemic. The support from our community and voluntary groups has meant that we have been able to help more than 1,100 of our most vulnerable residents. The community, as usual, has come together in times of stress. I would be grateful if you could save a date of our calendar for my charity Sunday civic service, which we're hoping, and that is a hope I hasten to add, for Sunday the 21st of February 2021. Isn't the year romping? We have commemorated Srebrenica online since the last full council, also Northampton's Pride Week, as well as commemorating the Battle of Northampton at the newly restored Queen Helena Cross. We're working with the Lowdown to formulate some online fundraising campaigns, and we'll be placing charity pots in local businesses soon. On Sunday, we'll be celebrating Liberia's Independence Day with the community online. I went to Liberia National Day last year. Now, I've never had a welcome like it. It was absolutely brilliant. I'd never met so many friendly people. We have been practicing their national anthem and look forward to the virtual event. Thank you. 3 public members of the public ready to speak. Before the deadline, I will invite Jane West and Ruth Hemingway to speak before motions are debated. Ms. Weston Hemingway.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hello, how are you?
Hi.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Lovely. To see
Sorry,
you.
I was expecting you to call me later on, so I wasn't quite prepared. So I do apologise.
You're on my list. I have to do as I'm told.
Yes,
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor Francis Fernandez, just as a matter of process, if we can get the member of the public to address council just before the motion, and
Yes.
that includes both Jane West and Ruth Hemingway.
Yeah.
And now we call on Keith Buckby to address
That's
council.
right.
Those are the
So
two.
they are speaking on which motion? Motion 1, 2, 3 or 4?
Mr. Mayor, we'll advise you as we come to it. So if we
Okay,
can
okay,
go
no
to Keith
problem.
Buckby, if we can go to Keith Buckby, that will be a good thing.
Keith?
Good
Keith
evening,
Buckby?
everybody. Hello.
Evening,
You
sir.
took me by surprise there. I thought my my other friend, member of the public, was about to be invited to speak, and I had a mouthful of chocolate, so apologies. Listen, I was hoping to speak later on, and this is my first council meeting, so forgive me, but I'm here on behalf of Northampton Town Supporters Trust. So huge congratulations to Northampton Town for achieving promotion, which hopefully will be a really good thing for the town and for its sporting heritage and future. However, I just wondered if the councillors have received an open letter from the trust, and I'm hoping that some questions will be asked and even more importantly answered as a result of the open letter that the trust has sent to all councillors, I believe, either yesterday or today.
I think we had it yesterday, Keith. I'm sure we did.
Okay. So yeah, that's all I'd like to say at this stage. Thank you. I thought too that I might be speaking a little later, hopefully after some words have been exchanged about that letter. But thank you.
Okay. Member and public question time. Thank you, Keith. We'll get back to you later. 13 questions have been received, are presented in front of you. The answers have been taken as tabled unless a supplementary question is asked. A question from Councillor Duffy to Councillor Hibbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Accepted as
Aye.
written.
Thank you. A question to Councillor Duffy to Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Accepted as written.
Thank you, Miss. A question for Councillor Stone to Councillor Hadland.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, where are the answers?
I haven't got them.
They were emailed earlier.
I haven't got them.
Shall we move on and come back?
Yeah.
That's the easiest.
Sorry.
So we go to question 7 now.
Sorry to interrupt. Hold on. So can this sound be improved? Because it's awful. The sound is awful.
You'd perhaps be better with a mic in a hear us.
I don't know if Tracy can do anything about it, please.
Can you improve that while the meeting continues, Tracy, or attempt to?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it might be useful for Councillor Meredith maybe to wear some headphones. That might help.
That's what I was inferring. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'll have to just nip away from the meeting just to go downstairs to get my headphones and try that. Okay.
I should think every 5-year-old in the country's got a pair, Councillor.
Okay.
We'll move to Councillor question 7. Councillor Birch to Councillor Hallam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm satisfied with the
Thank you,
answer.
Jane. Thank you. A question from Councillor Duffy to Councillor King. This is question 8.
Sorry, I haven't received that. Mr. Mayor.
That's question 8.
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to read the response?
If you would, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the question was, with the reopening of retail and pubs and the need for social distancing, are there enough officers carrying out this important function? And how are they engaged and work within the borough? So response is, staff from Environmental Health and Licensing team have been working with colleagues from the neighbourhood warden team to monitor the situation with premises that are reopening or have. Wardens are carrying out checks of premises within their areas, part of their routine duties, with team members from the food and safety and licensing teams also making contact. We have also, the business leaflets have gone out giving advice to premises that are reopening, which have been delivered widely across Northampton. Electronic copy was attached to the reply to the questions as well. Taxi marshals resumed on Saturday, the 4th of July, and will continue throughout the month of July, and being reviewed weekly, and also they'll be in place every Friday and Saturday again from 7 p.m. till 1 a.m. Street Farciers are currently working on preparations to resume patrols, including a review of their volunteer database. They'll be looking to resume patrols towards the end of July, so from next weekend, basically.
Thank you, Councillor King. Question.
That's accepted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Question 10. No, question 9. Councillor Beardsley for Councillor Hadland. We've got 3 questions from Councillor Beardsley to Councillor Hadland.
Can I ask a supplementary, please, Chair?
Oh, you've got the answers. Of course you have.
I have. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You've always got the answers.
I do my best. The thing that I'm most concerned about is the conversation between the council and the supporters club. And I'm hoping that there will be a regular meeting, and I hope Councillor Hadland can assure me that there'll be regular meetings with the supporters club to keep them in the picture so they don't feel as though things are getting away from them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, question 10 for Councillor Hadland again.
I was going to answer that one, Mayor.
Carry on then.
Yes, there are already regular contacts, I think, through the leader and the trust, and that will continue.
Thank you. Number 10, Councillor Beardsley.
Yes, just to ask through you, Mayor, how often those meetings take place with the supporters club?
Well, I don't attend them, so I don't know, Mayor.
Okay.
Question 11, Councillor Beardsley to Councillor Hadland again.
Yeah, thank you for the answer. I'm very glad that the council is actually looking at due diligence, whatever we do in future, so that no more mistakes are made at Sixfields. But I really think the conversation between the council and the supporters club could be improved. Thank you.
Thank you.
I take it that wasn't a question then, Mayor.
I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a statement?
It all depends on how you want to read it, Mr. Mayor.
One way or the other.
Yes.
You do tend to make statements.
Occasionally.
Yes, only occasionally. Number 12, question from Councillor Markham to Councillor Hallam.
So, yes, Mr. Mayor. First of all, this at the beginning of the questions, people were saying they hadn't seen the replies, and it is there was an email today with listed all the questions and all the replies. However, as the Democratic Services team know, I use modern.gov to follow these meetings because my eyesight is easier than trying to read. And unfortunately, the questions, the reply to the questions, although they were an attachment to an email, are not available alongside. So maybe this could be looked at in the future. But going back to the question, the answer from Councillor Hallam. First of all, he's very full on the issue of Northampton Partnership Homes and their how they deal with these the issue of Japanese knotweed and so on. And it's my fault. I accept it. Having reread my question, I'd intended it to cover not just Northampton Partnership Homes, but all land that the borough deals with. So what I'll do is send a written question for Councillor Hadland to answer in his own time. But I'm happy with the response so far. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Markham. Councillor Beards was again for Stephen Hibbert. Councillor Hibbert.
Supplementary, Mr. Mayor. I understand and I really appreciate all the good work that's being done. But having looked back in an old book of Northampton the other day, when the prefabs were being built in Banks Lane, I'm sure the mayor will remember them, they were
Yes.
putting up 5 a day. And that was in those days without technology and all the modern things that you have today. And I just feel that sometimes rather than put all our eggs in one basket with flats, maybe that some of the modular homes that are used today, which are ideal for single people and some with families, would be another way of looking at it. I always think it's best to do more than just one scheme. I think it's best to do several different sorts, because you don't want everybody living together in one mass. You want people spread about to fit in with the community. That's my question.
Councillor Hibbert?
Well, I don't recognise it as a question, sir, but I'm not, for Councillor Beardsworth's benefit, I'm not actually excluding that we might do this at some stage. It is at the moment that we're dealing with it through hoping to have a more permanent brick-built programme. Over the weekend, the government launched the next steps.
What's that?
I know.
My phone come on again.
Okay.
Right, I'll continue, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry.
Over the weekend, the government launched the Next Steps accommodation programme, which provides funding specifically for the, if we apply for it, and of course we will, for the project that's mentioned in my response. So that's the way we're going to be going. But, you know, I'm not entirely against this. There are problems with this. We have to find the appropriate piece of land. We have to provide facilities to them. We have to manage them as they're being occupied by rough sleepers. We have to think about their welfare and the support that they need. I don't necessarily see them as a cheaper option either. And there are all sorts of issues. Down in Cambridge, they raised a couple of points themselves. One was about minimum space standards. They didn't necessarily think they would provide accommodation. And the other was the ever-present argument about NIMBYism, about where we site these properties. But anyway, come back to the starting point. I'm not entirely excluding this.
Thank you.
Do you want to come back on that, Councillor Bearsworth?
No, I'm quite happy
Quite
as long
happy?
as you're not excluding it. Thank you.
Is Councillor Stone?
I am, yes, thank you.
Good,
I've
good,
received the
good.
questions now. Thank you so much. I don't have any supplementary questions except to say, one, are the written questions going to be available for the public? Because I think the supporters club
Yes, they
in
are.
particular
Yeah.
need to be able to see the written questions and the written answers. And I would like to thank the officers very much indeed for the written answers, but also for the briefing that Councillor Beardsworth and I had with them last week, with the promise that other briefings will follow. So I'm a bit more reassured that should anything be happening with Sixfields, that the opposition councillors will get the information as well. And I would just like to reiterate something that Councillor Beardsworth said, that rebuilding trust with the supporters is going to be really, really important, given the history of what has gone on. So speculation is very damaging to everybody. We need to be as open and transparent as we possibly can be, and rebuild the trust so that everybody knows what's going on. And we may not always agree with what's going on, but at least we're going to be understanding it. Thank you. I did have a question, Mr. Mayor, about St Edmunds, and I would like to ask a supplementary about that. It was to Councillor Hadland. Councillor Hadland, you will be aware that this project has been going on for 17 years. It's 17 wasted years, you know, and we badly need this project to come to fruition. You've said COVID has interrupted it. It was interrupted a long time before COVID happened. And what we really need, what I need, what all our constituents need, is a timeline and a finishing date. Have you got any idea when this project is going to be finished?
You're on mute, Councillor Hadland.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, hooray.
Yes, yes.
Well, I thought I was pressing the unmute button, but to know, but no, it's privately owned, it's privately run, it's privately financed, and we don't control the timing of the project. We are as anxious as anybody to have facilities like this and more facilities in the town, but we don't control the timing. It's gone a little way in that the listed building is now much better preserved than it was, and also slightly better looking, but the programme itself is in the hands of the owners.
Is there nothing supplementary, Mayor? Is there nothing we can do
All right.
to help them along?
Short of providing money, probably not. And we don't have coffers for such a thing.
Councillor Stone, are you coming back on that?
I think that was the supplementary.
That was it.
I'm fine,
Okay.
thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, thank you. Cabinet member presentations. I'll call on each cabinet member in turn to give a brief overview of their respective portfolios.
Mayor, Mr. Mayor, before
Yes.
you go on, can I make a plea, please? It would appear that there's a lot of traffic going about on chat. I, for one, can't listen to this and have screen readers on the chat line. If it's of any consequence, what's being put up there about what's going on, I'm being missed out. So can we actually keep it all to the meeting and forget the chat?
I fully agree with you, councillor.
Thank you.
My eyes aren't that good to see small print at the top of the screen. They will be limited to 3 minutes each. A period up to 45 minutes has been set aside for this, and I would encourage members to bear that in mind. I call on Councillor Nunn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think there's an outstanding question there, which I'm happy to answer, which Councillor Hadland wasn't able to. In terms of meeting with the trust, I don't think I've ever refused a meeting with the trust, be that a private meeting, if you like, a small round the table meeting, or indeed a more public meeting, which I attended some time ago with them. That offer remains open. We are communicating through them soon. They will receive a freedom of information request. We've had the letter with perhaps not the most conciliatory tone. I would prefer to get round with the table with them. Their letter highlighted obstacles. There are even greater obstacles to anything concluding, and I think such a discussion would bring them a great deal of comfort. I'm grateful for Councillor Stone's comments about the briefing, which I felt was an important thing to initiate, and I think that was very helpful. Very happy to continue those, and once again to meet with the trust as often as possible. That's one thing that I've done in the last month or so, which hasn't featured here on the report. Looking at the report, obviously, it's probably near 18 weeks now since we had the coronavirus pandemic. In terms of returning to the Guildhall, we at this stage do not have plans to bring staff back. We have recently sent out to elected members a member survey, and if you have another chance, I'd be grateful if you could. That asks questions such as, at such time as we can hold face-to-face meetings, should we, knowing that some may still need to shield, or should we wait till everybody is available to attend? I'd urge you to have a look. I think the link came from Karen in HR, if you could look out for that. We've been busy concluding the grants and have paid over £30 million in various grants. Criteria applied to those, not just our own criteria. So we haven't been able to help every single business, but nevertheless, £30 million or more has gone to Northampton businesses to try and see them through. a little bit. We've also been involved in things like the town centre. With the town centre bid, we've had a town centre task force. We've been meeting each week, particularly focused on getting the non-essential businesses open. And it was wonderful to see on the 4th of July, when some of the nighttime economy opened, that Northampton was seen as a good example, with the BBC coming to town to look at what a reopening of a town would look like, and highlighting that in Northampton there really weren't many problems, and there's great tribute to be paid to licensing and other staff, most particularly for the great work they did to guide the businesses who were opening. We've been in touch with partners a lot throughout lockdown. That includes people like the Leisure Trust and so on. Obviously, we're now hopeful, since writing my report, that they will be opening their facilities later this month, which is great. Not only means can people start to benefit from the health benefits, but to put it bluntly, their business can start to reinstate direct debits, get membership money flowing back in, and hopefully that's seen them through the worst of the crisis. On future Northants, I've always promised an update in every report on Unitary. Working now to what we call Safe and Legal Plus. As somebody who's quite close to this, I can tell you the appointments and meetings are flying about thick and fast. There is actually quite a lot of work doing, and I've drawn quite a lot of comfort from the fact that I think there will be a reasonably significant amount of service transformation that takes place before April next year, when the new Unitary comes into being. By then, I think we will find more cost-effective and better services significantly operating. Some members here at the council have been involved in task and finish groups. Those are making certain progress and so on, which I think is encouraging. Northampton Forward Board has continued to meet. Councillor Hadland may also say more on this. Our bid has gone into the Future High Streets Fund, where the strength of bid, with the feedback we were getting from government increasingly, is they want strong bids. We therefore prioritised our focus around the Market Square and office accommodation around the Market Square to create jobs and create economic prosperity. We have been focused on a major acquisition in Abingdon Street that went through Cabinet recently and should soon be progressed and completed. As part of the Towns Fund, which is the next scheme that Northampton is listed for, we have been delighted to discover that we've already had £1 million towards that project and that work. I think I've picked out some of the key priorities there. Other partners we've been in touch with have been the Roland Derngate and others, of course, the arts being an important part, and the Museum of Leathercraft. I hope that's helpful. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions?
Councillor Stone is indicating to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your report, Leader. I've got two questions. One I was going to save, I have three questions really. One I was going to save for the finance portfolio, but we sometimes don't manage to get there, so I'll ask you if you don't mind. When are we going to be privy to the forecasting about what's happening post-COVID to our local economy? I know that everybody is really worried about that. Thornton's closing, lots of other outlets are closing. We know a lot of people on 0-hour contracts are suffering really, really badly. We know that evictions are likely to be going up at the end of August. We know, we're told by economists, that we're probably looking at either a recession or even worse, a depression similar to the 30s. These can be very worrying times for an awful lot of people, and it seems to me that as councillors, you know, we need to be on top of all of that and really understand what's going on underneath in terms of our local economy, and then we need to be able to make decisions about what to do to help mitigate some of the worst aspects of that. So one of my questions is, would it be possible at some stage early in the autumn to have a members briefing about the local economy? I think people would find that very helpful. So that was one of the questions. The other question is, all councillors, I think, are getting a lot of traffic concerning environmental issues. And one of the questions we keep being asked is, we've seen during the COVID crisis how readily people take to cycling and how readily people have increased the amount they walk. And people are a bit fearful about going back to the old normal. They want a new normal where it's much safer to cycle and it's much safer to walk. And I'm very mindful that other local authority areas have actually taken advantage of the lull in a huge amount of traffic to actually reorganise a lot of their road systems, but we haven't. So the question we keep being asked is, why haven't we? Why haven't we done that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, apologies,
Carry on.
some of that I couldn't hear, but I think it was more my download speed actually, so it's different from my end. But I did understand the main thrust of the first part of that, which was about financial forecasting impact on the economy. I'm going to answer that, but I'm first of all going to say that I think the economy is all about what we make it, and we have to be seriously careful to talk ourselves into recession. There will be no more or no less money out there. It'll be the speed with which it runs, and every single person, whether they be councillor, media, whoever they are, who continues to talk us into economy is doing a disservice for the town. And my view would be we need to bounce back, and that will not be down to me. It may be down in very tiny part to what I spend, but it's down to every individual within our economy. But in terms of information available, yes, we do hear, and inevitably, well, how incredibly difficult it is for many organisations not to be able to trade properly for so many months. Inevitably, at this stage, I don't think there is any firm forecasting that's available. But quite frankly, any information I have is very welcome. So whether that means a members' briefing, I'm a big fan, as you know, of members' briefings and making all information available. I don't think there's any reason why we don't all know exactly what's going on. So certainly very happy to make that a firm commitment to an August briefing, subject to to what's available. And if we hear anything before, really happy to share that. On walking and cycling, indeed, we have all changed our habits, haven't we? And there is a couple of opportunities here. So there is active travel money, which the borough has worked with the county council to bid for. Inevitably, if you encourage people to cycle, you're talking about things that may have an impact on traffic movement, and as traffic volumes return. So, for example, converting bus lanes to 24-hour and use of cycling lanes, I think is a fantastic initiative, so long as it doesn't result in queues of traffic. So what we have done is we've asked the county council for some success criteria and to review any schemes that go on in Northampton, in the routes into Northampton, the Weedon Road being one of particular concern, where we know how much businesses suffer, we know how much residents suffered last time there were road works up there undertaken by the county council. But for the time being, projects such as that, and I mentioned the Weedon Road, I believe it's right to say that some of the signage has already started to change, that will turn, for example, the bus lanes there to 24-hour. Meaning that rather than just the 7:30 till 9, there will be full-time bus and cycle lanes, for example. We're also, I attended the initial meeting. I haven't attended anything subsequent though, but I know we're working on, I believe, the Streets for All project, which is also promoting sort of walking and cycling access into the town. So I'd agree with the aspiration, and I think if anything else, we just got to try it. So happy to confirm both of those things are happening, and on the forecasting, we'll gladly organise the briefing.
Any more questions?
I put my hand up,
No,
Mr.
Sally.
Mayor.
I
Yes,
thought you would come in.
No, I put my hand up on the screen, the blue hand. Yes, a couple of points for the leader, please. I was listening to the money programme on Saturday, and they were saying that councils are still pursuing people for council tax. And I just wondered what our position was on Northampton Borough Council, because that is quite a sizable bill for people to find who are going through very, very difficult circumstances. And also, are we still using bailiffs? I know they're not about any at the moment, but they're coming back in August. And I'm just concerned that people are going to have bailiffs knocked at the door because of council tax. Perhaps the leader could put my mind at rest and say that that won't be happening.
Probably my colleague Eldred may know the more up-to-date position. I do know that as a matter of principle throughout, we have been naturally keen to ensure that money flows in order to deliver services, and many people, of course, are in a position to continue a direct debit or indeed to make a payment, write a check or whatever as soon as their bill arrives. And we've been very grateful to those who have, which has seen a relatively modest, perhaps, decrease in the money coming in. That said, we have had an enormous number of very pragmatic and understanding discussions with people who have been in touch to say that they are experiencing difficulty, and that remains the most important part of our policy. Now, quite where we are on the latest in terms of numbers and so on, the finer detail of that, I'm afraid I'll have to defer to Councillor Eldred. If he doesn't get the chance, I've made a note, and what we can do is circulate some more general info, some more specific information on that. I think he's fairly far down the batting order to speak this evening.
Finally, through you, Mr. Mayor, in lots of councils are actually taking vehicles out of streets in the town so that people can distance themselves from each other, the 2 metre distance. I just wonder if there's any plans to do anything like that with the upper end of Abington Street.
No plans at the moment. Abington Street is an important part of the sort of town master plan. A lot of that is about regenerating the old department store buildings, which I discreetly referred to earlier as being very much in our sights. But in terms of the removal of traffic, at this point, that's not part of the proposals.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Move on to Councillor Larratt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to present my report as written. I'd just like to reiterate my thanks to all our staff who are continuing to facilitate our smooth operation via Zoom and whatever. So thanks for all the hard work they're putting in to ensure continuity. I've no real other comments other than to say that since my report was written, and I refer to the lights on the racecourse, I noticed that the town centre heritage lights have been renewed in front of the Guildhall and All Saints, and I think I have to say that they're looking really, really good. So other than that, Mr. Mayor, I present my report as written.
Councillor Stone.
I wasn't indicating.
You weren't?
No.
You should have something to say.
I think Councillor Birch is indicating.
Yeah.
Ah, you don't get body language on this, do you? Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Larratt, thank you for your report.
Keep texting me, just ignoring me.
Jane, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Somebody else is, I don't know what's gone wrong. All I can see, it says Tracy Tiff in front of me.
Right, okay. Right, can I start again?
Carry on.
Right, thank you. Is there a vetting process for new market traders to ensure a range of goods on offer? Is one of the questions. Now, is the coroner's court sitting? Grieving families should not be facing delays. And why are the civil courts not open? They are in other parts of the country. Third question, the transfer of assets to the parish councils is underway without full consultation and communication with community groups and councillors. Community centres are finding that they are on the list to be transferred and they've had no discussion with the parish council concerned. My final point is really a request. Rail issues are increasingly complicated and increasingly important as we are to use public transport and address the climate emergency. Can we please have a briefing session on future plans for rail? It's something I feel very ill-informed about, and I think that's probably it'd be useful for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as vetting of market traders are concerned, we do have some rules and regulations as to what can and what cannot be sold. And there is also a question of how many particular traders of certain types that exist. So vetting does take place, and the details of that can be obtained from the market manager. So you're happy to speak to him. I'm sure he'll send you all the details of what people can and can't sell, and the number of stalls we permit selling the same thing. So that is available. It is something we do. With regard to the court, the coroner's court, I cannot answer that matter. I think you'd have to raise that with the county council, because I think that's a facility that the county council provide. There are courts, some courts are open, I do know that, but they are, the fact that certain courts aren't currently open is a problem. There is a backlog, and it is impacting on our ability to take things forward. But I am constantly talking to the borough solicitor about this matter, and I will keep you updated as things progress. The transfer to parish councils, we've made no decision whatsoever on the transfer. We're transferring to existing parishes such as Upton, Duston, East Hunsbury, etc. We do need to consider, and I think I say under the governance review, we need to give some consideration as to what transfers to the new parishes and the town councils, but nothing has happened on that as far as I'm aware, and that will be subject to discussion at a forthcoming meeting of the working group. So hopefully we can take that further then. I fully agree, Jane, with regard to the situation on rail. I'm happy to agree to a briefing session. I think that's would be helpful. I think we have a meeting of the County Infrastructure Board coming up fairly soon. So I would suggest we leave it till after that, when we probably get more details of what rail issues are featuring in that within that process. So yes, let's have a briefing, and perhaps we need to determine when the best time for that is. But as I say, with the Joint Infrastructure Board coming up, I think perhaps following that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Phil. Jane, any follow on?
No, thank you very much.
No, happy. Councillor Beardsley must be next.
Mr. Mayor, I think it's Councillor Roberts.
Councillor Roberts, fire away, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Larratt. It was just a very quick question I asked last time regarding the flooding reporting and the surveys that have been done. We talked about releasing those survey reports. I appreciate the lead flood authority reports were released previously, but these are different reports and we haven't had those in the public domain. It was just a chaser on when we're going to get to see those.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have myself still not seen these reports. I have been pursuing them. I spoke to officers at the end of last week, and I'm assured that I will see them in the very near future. I understand they're massive documents, and they're working out a way of how to get them to me. That's exactly what I was told. But as soon as I've seen them and I've got them, I will ensure that they are published. I think they are very important documents. Flooding is a massive issue in Northampton. We had big problems following that incident last year, and it was, and we need to get these published. The public have a right to know, and they need to know the works that are required, particularly to our watercourses. And I think the sooner we get these published, the better. And I'm totally behind publishing them as soon as we can.
Thank you. Councillor Beers was coming up.
I want to speak on the next one, Chair. Mayor.
Okay, so we're Councillor Hadland presenting his report now.
Am I unmuted, Mayor?
No, I can hear you, sir.
Good. That's enough for me. The report is pretty comprehensive. Can I just add a little bit to the what Councillor Birch said about the asset transfers, which are also set out in this report? It's still early days. The list has been prepared. We're talking to the parish councils, and they in turn are doing their due diligence, which I would expect to be talking to the users of the community centres, in the case of community centres, and other very local organisations. So the die is by no means fully cast there. Can I just also make reference to the various funds that we're dipping into? We've heard about the High Street Fund and the Towns Fund. There is also the Getting Building Fund, which is being administered by the by SEMLEP, and we have a couple of projects in there which we thought were going to be fairly well down the list of priorities, but the government has been rather more generous than they had originally said they would be, and so the catch of that has moved further down the list, and it now includes us. So there'll be two projects that we'll be able to bring forward, which we hoped we would, but we weren't guaranteeing. So that's good news. Can I also just mention the fact that staff in this department are doubling up, because not only are they keeping all these projects going in the day job, but they're also doing an awful lot of work on business grants and things like that as a result of COVID. And they really have done an absolute sterling job and are much to be commended. So with that, happy to answer questions, Mayor.
Thank you.
Shall I go first then, Mr. Mayor?
Far away. I'm supposed to have them come through on my phone, but my phone don't stop dinging. It's one of those.
Oh, okay.
That's why I haven't got the order.
Okay.
I thought I was going to have a written order tonight, but that's dreams, I think.
Okay. This corporate asset that we're talking about, it says site identified. There's 16 sites here identified. Some like Ecton Brook, Plainfields, Bellurch Community Centre, Errington Park, Grafton Way Park. Now, these all be picked up by parishes who will then be responsible for the upkeep of them. This is, I wanted to make sure that I'm getting this right with this Councillor Hadland. They will be responsible through raising a precept in their own area to look after these areas if they decide to take them on. And the council will not be responsible for them anymore, and it will not be coming out of the council tax. Am I right in assuming that?
In the case of parks and open spaces, they're covered by the Environment Services contract, which has a number of years to run. So there would be absolutely no change until that contract is either renewed or changed. At that time, then we would expect, if the parishes do take these things up, that the costs on the main council tax fund would reduce and the parish precept would increase. Now, in theory, it should be pound for pound. Community centres are a different issue, and there again, the landlords will be responsible for quite a lot of the repairs, and the parishes would be responsible for the operation costs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadland. Anybody else wish to speak?
Councillor Meredith, Mayor.
Tracy, I'm sorry, but my phone, I can't read it. I haven't printed anything out. It'd be nice if it was printed out for next time. My apologies to you.
Mr. Mayor, just to help with the meeting going along, may I suggest that Tracy lists the speakers when their hands go up electronically in turn for you, so that we help with the flow of the meeting, if that's okay.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Okay, thank you.
I'll put this in a bucket of water, sir. I don't muck about. Carry on.
I think I'm waiting for a question from Councillor Meredith. Am I, Mayor?
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. I'll just be wondering. I noticed Cabinet Member report for planning, which is signed by Councillor James Hill. Does that mean, Councillor Hadland, that you're dealing with an issue? Because I don't want to raise my query if it's going to the wrong person. Can you just confirm that you're taking Councillor Hill's report?
No, Councillor Hill, Mayor, will be taking Councillor Hill's report, and I will be taking my own report. This was a portfolio which was originally a single portfolio, but we felt that it was rather too large for one person, so we split it 2 years ago, Mayor.
Okay.
So
Right,
planning questions are best addressed to Councillor Hill.
okay. Thank you. I'll do that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Duffy is indicating to speak.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to request that the Western Fayval development takes as wide as possible consultation, including the residents' associations in the Eastern District.
Yes, it's early days, Mayor, but there will be the widest possible consultation when there is something really concrete to consider.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any further speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Can I just come back on one point, please, Mr. Mayor? It's Councillor
No,
Beardsley.
but I know you will do.
Well, no, I
Carry
just
on.
wanted to say, Councillor Hadland mentioned in his answer to me that when parish precepts go up, the borough council precept goes down. Pound for pound is what he said. Now, I've been on the council a long time, and I've never known the county council to reduce its precept. And when you think of places like Duston, who people pay, I think, nearly £90 extra a year, and other places varying down in scale, it doesn't seem right that you can say that if the parish precept puts up, the borough council will go down, because that's never happened in the past.
Can I expand on that, Mayor?
Carry on.
I expressed a hope that that's what would happen. What we haven't had in the past is situations where one authority has had responsibility for a cost, and that the responsibility for that asset and its cost is transferred to another. And it is common sense, I would hope, that if we don't have double counting, then if the cost moves from one authority to another, there ought to be a commensurate difference in their charges. That's as clear as mud, isn't it, Mayor?
Sounds good to me. Councillor Beardsley.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it is as clear as mud for the people out there who are actually on YouTube watching this tonight. It's almost like saying that if your parish council takes on extra duties from the borough council, then the bill will just be transferred to the parish. Now, this isn't the case, and I don't want to mislead people into thinking it is. The council has, I don't think I've ever known it actually reduce its precept. since I've been a councillor, which is 30 years. And we've actually got more parishes now, and they are having a precept as well. So don't let's confuse the issue for the general public.
Shall I re-explain, Mayor?
Carry on, sir.
I've never known precepts go down either, but they may well rise less quickly than they would otherwise have done. It would be unfair, clearly, if a cost moves from one authority to another, if the charges aren't adjusted. Now, in the case of parishes and what will become West Northamptonshire Council, we're dealing with sums of money which in relation to West Northamptonshire are quite small, but in relation to an individual parish are quite large. So the cost that is relieved from the large authority isn't going to be instantly identifiable in a very large budget, but it is a cost that it would no longer have to bear, and therefore a cost that it shouldn't be charging for.
Sally, still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm not convinced, Mayor. I really am not convinced. In a perfect world, yes, but we don't live in a perfect world, and unfortunately, that doesn't happen. Never known it to happen, and we always manage to put our precept up to what the government allows us to do.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if we're having a debate and it's regarding the governance review, I'd like to enter the debate at some stage.
Well, I'm sure you, if you wish to, that would be. It's not a debate, though, is it? It's a questions and answers.
Well, I'm responsible for the governance review, so I would, at some stage, if it's a debate, like to be involved.
If you want to put your threepence in you get, Councillor Arrett.
All I wanted to say, Mr. Mayor, is that where grounds are currently maintained under our contract with Veolia, they will continue to be maintained under that contract until the contract is renewed. So in other words, any land that we transfer will continue to be maintained under the contract for another 8 years. Once those 8 years are up, yes, it will become a responsibility of the parish or town council, and they will be responsible for the cost. I think you will find though, that knowing the parish councils that I work with already, the cost will be significantly less. I mean, if you go to Wootton and discuss the cost that they incur in maintaining their grounds, it is significantly less, and they have proved that by going to our contractors and to people the local people, and they get a far better job at a far better price. So I think the parishes will benefit well from this in the long term.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Brian Markham is indicating to speak.
Fire away, Brian. The floor is yours.
Right, am I unmuted?
I can hear you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Well, following what's going to be a question for Councillor Hadland, but in fact, since Phil Larratt came in, it may well be a question for him. I take what's been said about at some stage, well, the current review of the Borough Council transferring assets to parishes that exist. But does Councillor Hadland think that this is likely to happen with the new West Northampton Unitary Council and the new parishes that are coming along? And if it is, shouldn't this be a priority for for the governance review, perhaps with Phil Larratt? Because I think there's a great danger that the Borough Council, rightly or wrongly, might be approached to take on the new parish town council. Might be the town council might be approached to take on things like the new museum, the Abington Park, the race course, whatever. Now, whether this gives better value for money to be debated, but the number of people sharing those assets and the number of people paying for those assets, of course, would be less than currently. So, should it be part of a major review if in the future?
Mr. Mayor, sorry, can I just raise a point of order? Because I'm totally lost. This was meant to be cabinet member presentations.
Questions and answers.
To the cabinet member presenting the report, not a free-for-all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Councillor Larritt should present his report first.
We'll move on then. Councillor Hallam. Report on environment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep this really brief in the interest of time. There is one amendment to my report, which is there seems to be a rather erroneous chart that's come in there with some numbers in. That wasn't in the draft at all, and neither myself or the lead officer can understand why that chart has appeared. It's not relevant to the report, so please take it as an error. In the interest of time, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to present the rest of the report as written and take any questions.
Mayor, we have Councillor Rufi Ashraf and Councillor Les Marriott indicating to ask a question.
Councillor Ashraf.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Hallam, thank you for your providing the stats on page 22. However, what would be helpful is if we had information like stats available about fly tipping, fines issued, crimes reported, maybe dog fouling incidents. That sort of information will be really valuable for us. Second question. Many of our wardens are aware where our hotspot areas are. Can we install CCTV cameras there to catch the perpetrators? And my last question is, will basketball and tennis courts and Mugers receive a deep clean?
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Ashraf. Your first question was on information. I knew if you look through my previous reports, I normally do put individual stats in there, which isn't actually the right place for it, but I knew and I do normally put them in. Just this time I didn't for whatever reason, but they can be found in Councillor Larritt's tracking reports that go to Cabinet on a regular basis. So that's the place for those. Your second point was on fly tipping. If you check your emails, you'll see an email back from me on CCTV cameras. An awful lot of work has been done on this, and we do have a councillor that I approached and asked to trial that within their particular ward, which they agreed to do, and we had a subsequent drive around that ward to look at locations. So we are looking at them. In your email, you will see that there are some challenges in some of the streets around Old Northampton, but I have asked you if you could come back to me with some specific volunteers that might be up for putting them in houses. If you could reply to that email, we can carry on that moving forwards. And the third thing was on the cleanings that Veolia and everyone is doing at this challenging time. And it's a good time for me to say thank you to all the hard work that those people are doing, because all of the areas under the COVID regulations are receiving the appropriate cleaning, and people are working extremely hard to do that. And it's easy to forget now that we're a few weeks since our last clap for carers and key workers. It's easy to forget that actually the virus hasn't gone away and that work's still carrying on. So of course it's done according to the regulations as government has specified. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Marriott. Are you muted, Councillor Marriott?
Is that better? Am I in?
Hi.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, fine, I'm on. Well, the mic was off anyway, but yeah, sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, a couple of questions for Cabinet Member. One's to do with street furniture. I just wondered if there's a maintenance regime for them. I was in the town centre last week, and I did notice, particularly around All Saints Square, the seating there is getting poor condition I imagine elsewhere in the town is. And one in particular I noticed was the memorial seat to former councillor Mayor Terry Wire, which doesn't look too well. I just wonder if there's a maintenance regime in place for that. And the other question is to follow on from Councillor Ashraf. I had an unpleasant experience this morning, very early on, of one of the refuse lorries passing and the distinct smell and odour that came from that. I just wondered, not just with, obviously with those sort of machines, but other machines that the workers use in Viola and Aldi Verdi, whether they've actually been sanitised and cleaned properly. Because obviously Monday morning, I would expect refuse lorries to have been cleaned at least some time prior to it starting out. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marriott. Yeah, a very similar answer, really. A full sanitisation regime in place. There's the contractors have regulations kind of coming out of their ears, really, in terms of the things that we need to do, and we're obviously ensuring full compliance. I was sorry to hear you mention that Councillor Terry Wire's bench is not in good order. I will take that forward, and we'll see what we can do about that, and obviously in conjunction with his family, and maybe he can help us with that. Although I was speaking to his widow recently about another matter. The street furniture has been replaced in Abington Street relatively recently. Obviously, there's not a whole load of maintenance that you can do on them, especially with the sort of more robust benches that we tend to buy. But I'll certainly take forward the point about Councillor Wire's bench. In terms of sanitation as well, Councillor, while I'm on the subject, you'll be pleased to hear that the Deep Clean team in Adelaide Street in Semilong this week, moving forward with the Deep Clean programme. They were in Aberdare Road last week, and they're moving on to Semilong this week. So hopefully we should see some improvements and some positive feedback like we've seen from some of the other streets once they've finished their deep clean in Semilong. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hallam. Anybody else?
Councillor Duffy is indicating to speak.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to ask the councillor if he remembers the walkabout we did approximately 2 years ago up the side of Blackthorn School, and it was agreed that bins would be installed there. I've reminded the council and also the officers in the community section to remind the councillor, but I've had no feedback as to when these bins might be installed. Perhaps the councillor could give me an answer on that, please, as to progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Duffy. If it's been 2 years, I really wish you'd have chased me before now, because I would have followed it up. And obviously, this is the first time you've mentioned it in those 2 years. So I will write an email shortly, and I'll get an answer for you on email as to when they will be done. I do remember the walkabout, and they seem like a logical place to put the bins. But please, if I don't get back to you, I do have a lot of queries to deal with. You can chase me before 2 years is up. Feel free.
Thank you. A report from Councillor King, Community Engagement.
Mr. Mayor, I think that's the 45 minutes that is up. That was the
45 minutes has gone then.
Yeah.
So we've got opposition group business now from Councillor Gareth Eales. Make a statement on a recovery plan for Northampton, clean, safe and green. You have 5 minutes, Councillor. Councillor has 3 minutes to respond, and Councillor Eales has a further 2 minutes to sum up. Thank you, Councillor Eales.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The COVID-19 crisis has thrown into focus the importance of our key workers, and we appreciate all the more our waste collectors, our bus drivers, NHS staff, postal workers, retailers, etc. And I'd like to place on record my own appreciation for our staff, for NBC staff who've worked wonders in keeping this authority going. The COVID-19 has also exposed the deep inequalities in our society, and our frontline workers, the most vulnerable, are the hardest hit. The crisis has also shown how people come together, with thousands stepping up to support their neighbours. We've seen a decrease in pollution, we've seen an increase in cycling, and it's great to see people appreciate our wonderful green spaces. But COVID-19 is taking not just our country, but the world into what is expected to be a depression, not a recession, which is why we need a recovery plan that addresses a number of issues, some of which I'd like to highlight. And it's not me having a go at anyone locally, and I hope much of what I'll state is stating the obvious will be in harmonious agreement. Some of the things I'm going to say are the responsibility of the government, some are our own, but we can and should call for action in any and every regard for the benefit of the people of Northampton. The Living Wage Foundation accreditation is more important than ever, particularly as we head into unitary. We want to keep our clean air and invest in our green infrastructure, more safe cycling and walking, working in partnership with NCC. We need to give due consideration to convert on-street parking bays into usable spaces for business and to better enable social distancing. We need to build on the goodwill and the volunteering we've seen in the voluntary sector. We need an anti-poverty strategy so we can rebuild resilience in the social capital that's needed to take us forward. We need to ensure our arts and culture scene gets the protection it needs. We're already seeing venues across the country closing their doors, and we cannot allow the likes of Royal and Derngate or the Roadmender to suffer the same fate. I acknowledge motion 3 coming up later and our amendment, and that gives me confidence. We must also ensure our sports clubs are supported and that the East Stand at Sixfields is completed. You may wonder how I've connected football with COVID-19. Well, I like to think I can give a football analogy with most situations in life, but the connection here is purely an economic one. A thriving football team can only benefit the local economy, and in order for the Cobblers to reach their full potential, that stand must be completed without any further delay. The town and its fans deserve it. And to give you a football analogy now, we're barely entering the end of the first half of this pandemic. There's been no final whistle yet, and we may get extra time, which is why we need to ensure we have sufficient contingency plans for a second wave and the likelihood of local lockdowns. But the main issue of concern for me and what keeps me awake at night is the prospect of mass unemployment. Analysis by the Office for Budget Responsibility suggests there could be 3 million people unemployed as a result of COVID-19, and that's a huge risk for us in Northampton and Northamptonshire, especially without a recovery plan centred on protecting and creating jobs backed by major investment. Workers who've required some form of job retention and the self-employed are likely to face unemployment in the future. The TUC analyses that an estimated 30% of workers in our area have required those schemes. And on top of this, there'll be many people who've been laid off already or entering into the market during the crisis. People are very worried about their jobs. Losing your job is a dreadful experience and devastating for families. That's why good jobs must be at the heart of any recovery plan. Jobs in the reborn manufacturing sector, jobs in the green industry. We need to safeguard our future to meet climate targets. The pandemic alone didn't cause the crisis, but it's been made worse by a decade of austerity. Choosing the wrong approach now risks embedding low growth and long-term unemployment. We need to rebuild our public services. Nearly 150 authorities have forecast a combined budget shortfall of £3.2 billion, and the government has got to recognise the financial situation facing our councils. At least 5 councils have said they will meet the Section 114 criteria, something we're all too familiar with. And our own situation of finances were precarious enough without the pressures of COVID-19 and the ever-increasing costs of unitary. I'd hoped last week the Chancellor would put his faith and money in the people across the UK and our local authorities so we can avoid mass unemployment and a disaster in our public services. Instead, we get Nando's vouchers and encouragement to eat out, to help out. We need more than that, and we must collectively call for it. Let's not, as an authority with a limited shelf life, be too meek or polite to make certain demands. Our citizens are at real risk, and now is the time for leadership at every level in order we can recover and have a cleaner, safer, greener, stronger Northampton.
Thank you, Councillor. That's your 5 minutes up, I think. Councillor Nunn, you have 3.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a really important debate. I always feel with the opposition business, whoever we have to respond, it's always difficult to know what the particular points will be. I'll try and address some of those, and perhaps I can make some general points. I think this is a really important issue. Happy that we move ahead and keep everybody involved, and there may be some joint party work that can take place I'd like to echo Councillor's appreciation, as we did, of course, following Councillor Beardsworth's motion at the last meeting, for key workers and particularly our own staff. I can also confirm we're committed to the living wage. There is some activity going on to build on the goodwill of those volunteers, because that's absolutely crucial. Just to reference some of the points he picks up, no one wants the East Stand built more than me, and if we didn't cover it enough, it comes before any development. It is the absolute in any sort of arrangement made for development. Jobs are extremely important, and there are some work streams going on which I'll cover in a moment. I think at our council we have had big costs, but we have a certain control over that. I think we have a better control than many, actually, with thanks to our head of finance, our finance team, and the senior officers involved. And we are endeavouring to keep members updated on that. There have been some numbers aired, I think, more recently with overview and scrutiny. In terms of what's happening, there is a community resilience plan, which is around main headings of nurturing social capital. That's building on that goodwill built up, mental health and well-being, understanding community tensions and community cohesion being focused on, continuing to provide support to the most vulnerable and the shielding and so on. On the green side, active travel, I think we've already mentioned those initiatives are starting to take off, and the Streets for All, which is based on that. We have got we've been working on a weekly action plan with the BID to introduce signage, leaflets, sanitizer stations to try and make the town a welcoming place to come to. As part of SEMLEP, they're doing major strategical work that we're contributing through on a whole bunch of what ifs. What happens if the retail trade takes this kind of dip, the automotive trade or whatever? So there's strategic stuff going on there. The Economic Recovery Cell works county-wide across Northamptonshire, and they're creating a strategy which focuses on trying to identify where unemployment might be worse, where further apprenticeships can be created, where training, retraining and so on can be undertaking, upskilling and so on, and looking at where new industries can be developed or new areas of skills can be created against potential gaps in the economy. That happens at a county level. The government grants, of course, we've distributed, as I mentioned, 30 million or more to local businesses, and I think Councillor Haddon mentioned the Getting Building Fund, for which we've been able to put in a bid for some regeneration work. We've been guiding businesses to government support and government grants, to also the Growth Hub, the SEMLEP Growth Hub support and so on.
Time up, Councillor Nunn.
Yeah. In short,
Thank
a
you,
lot going
Councillor
on.
Nunn.
Thank you.
Councillor Eales, 2 minutes.
Yeah, I don't intend to take the 2 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But only to say,
that's unusual.
Thank you. When you make these sort of statements of opposition group business, it just it can sound, unless you know me, of course, like I'm just having a go, having a moan. I'm not stating in the slightest that there isn't work going on. I think there is some fantastic work going on, particularly out in the community. I think the point that I'm making, we can do as much planning as we like, but it's got to be underpinned by investment. It's got to be and I appreciate with them this it kind of opens me up to a retort about magic money trees and all that sort of stuff. We're left with no choice with the finances in local government, as precarious as they are. Our situation was precarious enough, and if we don't lobby government, and if we don't collectively, God forbid we should all share a platform, if we don't stand on the same platform, shoulder to shoulder, and tell the government what we need, then ultimately it'll be our citizens that are put at risk. And I will say, our MPs have got a big role to play. Coming to Northampton on a Friday, having a coffee and a photo ain't going to cut it. We need to do a lot more than that. This is an unprecedented situation, and it's it'll be probably, I hope, the worst crisis that I'll ever face in my lifetime. But one final thing I'll say, Ma'am, and I'm going to take a bit of a liberty. The meeting's been going on now for an hour and a half, and I think it's been a bit remiss for no one to congratulate Northampton Town Football Club on their win at Wembley. So hopefully that can be remedied before the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Councillor, they did have a letter from the mayor the next day.
I'm sure they did, but it'd be normal protocol to say it in this forum. Is all I'm saying.
Appreciate, yes. Thank you, sir. Item 9, member officer protocol. Councillor Nunn to propose.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a relatively straightforward thing, which is for us to consider the recommendations in respect of the Member Office Protocol made to the full Council by the Standards Committee at its meeting on the 29th of June. They've given this some important consideration. It is, for me, an extremely important issue, so I'm very happy to propose the report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Larratt to second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to second, and I reserve my right to speak if necessary.
Thank you.
Councillor Stone is indicating to speak.
Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will be supporting this document. I think it's really important to get member officer protocols in place and really understood. We rely hugely on officers to support members, and we expect the highest standards of behaviour from members as well as from officers. So I'm pleased to support the paper. I'm a bit concerned that we've used a word like ambush in it. I think if people have been ambushing officers, that's completely unacceptable. But I'm not sure that's the kind of language I would want to see in council documents, I have to say. The important bits for me, it's all important, but the important bits for me in the policy is around, it's 2122, where it's looking at the key issues. And I think it's really important that we confirm and reaffirm that the guiding principle for members and officers is engendering mutual trust, openness, honesty, fairness, transparency, and treating everybody with respect. I do think I have said this quite a lot lately. I do think it's really important for members to get to know officers. You know, we're all working together, we're all public servants. We need to be facing the same way. And I think that relationship between members and officers is really important. And like in any other institution, a lot of that takes place incidentally as we're passing, or were formally passing through the Guildhall, as well as when we're doing casework. I think I wouldn't want to lose that because trust has broken down. So yes, we're pleased to support the document. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Brian Markham and Councillor Sally Beardsworth are indicating to speak.
Councillor Markham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, as a member of this standards working group, obviously I welcome this. What I'd like to say is, of course, the standards committee and the working group in particular have been working on updating. It's not as though we've not had a protocol before. And we've done that work now. It's come through to this council. What I think is very important and very seldom mentioned tonight, we don't need the new unitary authority to spend 2 years working on a protocol for themselves. So I'm just anxious that this gets processed through somehow to the new council so that they're not delayed. They've got other things to work. And my understanding is the member officer protocol, we may have reviewed it at the borough, but be far, far better at the borough council than it's ever been at the county council. So let's get on with it here, but also let's try and make sure that the new unitary adopts our policy, or at least adopts its own policy in short term.
Councillor Beardsworth.
Yes, well, Brian's already said, but we're going to obviously support the document. We feel it's absolutely necessary that we have a good relationship with all the staff and treat them with respect. And they do. I've never had a problem in my time on the council with any particular officer, and it's nice. It's a lovely working atmosphere to come and visit the council. It's a shame though if when things do go wrong that we haven't got the teeth in standards committee that we used to have to put these matters correctly, because some people need to be told how to behave, and if we're taking on a whole lot of new councillors on unitary, they need to be educated by their groups on how to behave with their officers. Thank you, Chair Mayor.
Thank you. Right to reply, Councillor Larratt.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I did reserve my right to speak, and can I just say that I agree with a lot of what's been said. I think at the borough we do have extremely good working relationship with officers and members and across the political spectrum, and I think that's all to our credit. And I think Councillor Markham is absolutely right that we need to try and get the ethos of the working relationship that currently exists so well in this council reflected in the unitary. I'm very worried that the county council are leading far
Phil, you're broken up.
He's frozen.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I don't know what happened there, but my internet went down and I just got a blank screen, but it's come back. I don't know if you can hear me.
But you said everything.
All I was going to say is that we need to get a good working relationship like we've got at the borough embedded in the unitary. And I think it's fair to say that both Councillor Beardsworth and I are on the Constitution Working Group, and we will be doing what we can to get the protocol we're discussing here incorporated into that of the unitary. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to thank Councillor Patel and the cross-party committee. There's a lot of work gone into this, and the officers, of course, for doing the report. Is it agreed?
Agreed.
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 Everybody agreed?
Yes.
Item 10, change to committee places. Councillor Patel to propose a report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a straightforward. Councillor Parekh replaces Councillor Hebert on the audit committee. Please propose this.
Thank you. Councillor Oldham to second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to second.
Thank you, sir. Is that agreed?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Item 11, notice of motion. Motion 1. Councillor Smith to propose the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a motion to really prepare for what we know is likely to come shortly when the notice of and the limit on evictions is up. It's going to be a really difficult time, I think, for a lot of people, and that's recognised from a point of view of tenants struggling and possibly landlords struggling who may have been struggling with mortgages. And I know it was mentioned in Councillor Hibbert's report that there is a real concern about what happens when that period of evictions comes to an end and increased homelessness. So this is one way to expand on the work that's already taking place within the council in terms of buying up properties where they're available, the work that's happening with the social lettings agency to ensure that the council has options and ways to provide housing and support for people. And it's a practical way of ensuring that landlords who may be selling up anyway, that these are the landlords where their properties are used within the council, we're able to take advantage of that. So I would urge everybody to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Stone to second.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think it's really important that we are a local authority that anticipates problems and we have a way of solving them. One of what we don't need in this very critical post COVID time where we've had a freeze on evictions. The last thing that we need is an increase in homelessness. We do not want more children going into care because their parents can't pay their mortgage or pay for the rent. We need to put something in place, it seems to me. We know this is a huge problem just about to hit us, and we need to have a way of mitigating against all the risks of people becoming homeless. We know that it's been a really difficult time for a lot of landlords because they haven't been able to collect their rents in the way that they would have expected to. We know that a lot of small landlords will be thinking about selling up. We know that even in our own temporary accommodation, people are being threatened with eviction. Why? What is in it for us to do that? We do not want homelessness increasing. So this seems to me to be a very logical next step. We've already agreed with a housing strategy where we will invest to save. This is just taking it one step further, and I hope everybody will vote for it. Thank you.
I call on Councillor Smith, who has the right to reply.
Thank you, Mayor. It seems to me that this is a really important move, and it's a way of supporting our housing and supporting our options. Thank you.
Councillor, to debate the
Sorry,
motion.
Mr. Mayor. Councillor Hibbert's been waving like mad, and I was going to speak, but I thought he was ahead of me, so I was going to signal in a moment. Yeah. He's calmed down now.
We've got Councillor Hibbert, have we? Has he stopped waving?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I thought I was down to speak on this. This is
well, you are now.
For my invitation. Sorry, my machine's playing up a little bit. I mean, we do accept that there are dangers here of an increase in homelessness. It's something, therefore, we are preparing for. And these are indeed difficult times for landlords and tenants alike. But the opposition know that we're already buying up properties in the private sector through the HRA, 25 already, and I'm shortly going to bring plans to Cabinet for a great deal, many more than that, as many as 100 or even more than 100, I don't know yet. The opposition group are aware of that because they actually form the working group on overview and scrutiny that are looking into it. I call this investing to save, and that's the thrust of this motion. And I don't think we need to confuse things by buying through the social lettings agency, Guildhall Residential Homes. But particularly as I'd remind everybody that they're not inhibited in any way. The SLA already has powers to rent or lease properties, and I'm sure also if any landlords wishing to sell came forward and proffered the property to us, that we working with MPH would look into acquiring it. So the motion really calls upon the council to do what it's already doing, and in such circumstances I'd rather that it be withdrawn, because I think we're all on the same page, but I find this motion unnecessary, and sadly for the opposition we will be voting against it.
Councillor Nunn?
Councillor Bearsworth has also indicated to speak as well.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Hibbert's largely commented. I know he was ready to speak, so I was waiting to signal till after him. I think I first of all misread this because the motion says we call to buy up houses to let in the private sector. I think I misunderstood what was planned. But Councillor Hibbert's absolutely right. I wasn't sure why we would be letting houses out in the private sector. We are a council. But Councillor Hibbert's absolutely right. This is something that's been going on. It's been going on for some time. We've 24 now completed, I think, and universally, it seemed to me to be acknowledged across the council to be in support of that policy. Other than the fact that I had felt when I'd last checked into overview and scrutiny that there was a lot of talk about pre-scrutiny, which seemed to be concerns being raised about this. We wholeheartedly support this. We've been doing it for some time, and it will continue. And I'm not sure what this motion adds beyond what's already going on. As Councillor Hibbert says, he's hoping to bring us a list of say 100 more that we can add to try and fill the vitally needed shortfall in social homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bearsworth.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I don't think it's unfortunate this motion is being brought forward. I will say I would support it, basically because it's bringing this out into the public arena. And this is on YouTube tonight, and there might be somebody there that's got a house he's struggling to get rid of, and this is what the council meeting's about when we invite the general public in, is actually highlighting the problem. And I just wondered if the council had looked at shared ownership, where people maybe could buy a percentage of the house to get them through a difficult part, and then eventually when they get their lives back on track, they could buy that share back. I don't know if that's something that they've looked at, but it's something that we could consider, as well as buying property up. But I know we are doing it, but it's really good to let the general public know what we're doing as well. So this is one of the reasons that we bring these motions to council. So the Liberal Party will be supporting it.
Roberts is indicating to speak.
Councillor Roberts, far away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to speak, but I think it's important that I do so. The motion looks specifically at a type of purchase of property. The buyback scheme that Councillor Hibbert and Councillor Nunn are referencing relates to buyback of properties that the council have historically sold off. And I know that Councillor Hibbert talks about referencing things that are going before scrutiny or pre-decision scrutiny, but we haven't got there yet because we haven't completed that because the information wasn't sufficient for us. So we do need to complete that before anything goes to cabinet, and that was previously agreed, and I appreciate him agreeing to us having a look at that work. But I think it's really important that we should look at different types of property purchases, different types of schemes, and different ways that we can move things forward. And saying that we're already doing it, I don't think is a fair assertion.
Thank you, Councillor. George, there was 3 people who were going to speak. Which motion were they speaking on?
I think we're still on this motion, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I didn't know it was this motion. You see, I didn't want it gone and voted on without them having a say. Okay. Councillor Smith, quick right to reply. You've already had a right to reply, but you can sum up.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. I've heard the comments that have been made, and I think, to be honest, I suspect it's more confusing to vote against something which represents an action that the council is fully committed to. It's actually, this would strengthen it, and as Councillor Roberts mentioned, it's a different way of approaching. We're looking to acquire, we're looking to have that property so that we can offer as much as possible. We've got real issues with our temporary accommodation and the accommodation we're able to offer more widely and permanently. We know that we're looking to acquire more properties. We know we're already committed to it, and it's really important as a council to further that commitment. This is echoing, we've got 2 really successful things. We're trying to buy up property, and we've got a social lettings agency that's going to be more important than ever in the wake of the homelessness that we're looking to see. So I think it's really important going forward. And I think it would be much more positive to support this motion to confirm the council's commitment to acquiring property in many different ways. So I would urge everybody to support this.
Thank you. I need a vote on this.
Mr. Mayor, Francis Fernandez, if I can assist, because hi, hello, Mr. Mayor. Just to assist with the voting, because it looks like there might not be agreement, for this, to try and make things a bit more measured and simple in terms of the voting. Can I suggest that what we do is we go for councillors who agree first, and if councillors can indicate on the screen, yeah, just put your hand so that Democratic Services can count you, so we know, and then we go to the councillors who disagree after that, and then we go to the abstentions. If we can do it like that, if councillors can please assist us in that, that would be very helpful, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we're going for agree as the first vote.
Raise your hands, that's it.
So Democratic Services will be counting. So Tracy, are we getting there?
Mayor, we could go for recorded vote, it'd probably be easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's 18 hands in the air, but because the screens keep moving, it's difficult to catch everybody.
Do you need somebody to go through the names?
What I suggest, councillors, Mr. Mayor, is that if the vote is very close, then you can go to a recorded vote. But if it's 18-4, and then if we go for the against, you know, if it's clear win or lose, then I don't think we need to go to a recorded vote unless, you know,
I think we need to be accurate, Mayor. We need to be accurate. I've counted 19.
It's quite easy, isn't it, when there's a lot of people to miss?
I think a recorded vote's the only way forward.
We'll go recorded vote.
Mr. Mayor, can I just help you on this? Because I think this is what I'm about to say. I think this is important. On the county, when we go on Zoom, there is a voting system.
It's proportionate, isn't it?
No, there is a voting system where you just press one of the links and it gives you who's for and who's against. I think if the Democratic Services liaise with the county, what's his name?
Paul Hanson.
Doesn't make a difference. Paul Hanson, yeah.
Hanson,
If they is with them, I'm sure he will tell them how to do it, and it's a much better way of casting votes because it gives a right figure. I can't see how it's done here, but I know it works well on the county.
I saw West Northants, and that was done on percentage.
Yeah, well, the vote for and vote against and percentage.
That is a facility Zoom does have, but our license does not have that at the moment.
Right.
That is something we can actually look to obtain.
Can I ask get the license to intended to include it in the future?
And then who votes either way is recorded on the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, can I?
It's a much better way. It really is. Because I mean, this vote is going to be close.
One at a time, please. Who's going first?
Okay, Mr. Mayor, can I suggest, Francis? Can I just provide some advice?
Carry on, sir.
What I suggest is, as a number of councillors have indicated that you'd want a recorded vote. Usually it's 5 councillors, so I think there are 5 councillors who need to indicate they want a recorded vote. And if that's what happens, then I suggest we go to a recorded vote. So I've got 2, 3, so we've got 5. Yeah, all right. Can I suggest, Mr. Mayor, that we go to a recorded vote?
Yes, fair enough.
And Democratic Services, can you start reading? Can you start reading the names out, please?
We've got the recorded. We have the recorded vote sheet here, starting with the Mayor, Councillor Sargent.
Abstain.
Councillor Ashraf.
For.
Councillor Ansell,
Against.
Councillor Aziz, I think Councillor Aziz has left the meeting.
Councillor Aziz is there. Sorry, Councillor Aziz is there. He's on mute. Can I ask councillors to be ready to unmute yourselves when your name's called out, please? Thank you. So, Councillor Aziz.
Against.
Was that against?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Beardsworth.
For.
Councillor Birch.
For.
Councillor Botwood.
Against.
Councillor Carley.
For.
Councillor Chowdhury.
For.
Councillor Chunga.
Councillor Chunga, we can't see you on screen.
Okay. How about that? How about that?
There he is it for? Are you voting for or against, Councillor Chunga?
Abstain. Abstain, please. Abstain.
Councillor Davenport.
For.
For. Councillor Duffy.
For.
Councillor Gareth Eales.
For.
Councillor Terry Eales.
For.
Councillor Eldred.
Against.
Councillor Golby.
Against.
Councillor Greystone.
Against.
Councillor Hadland.
Against.
Councillor Hallam.
Against.
Councillor Hack.
For.
Councillor Hibbert.
Against.
Councillor Hill.
Against.
Councillor Joyce.
For.
Councillor Kilbride.
Against.
Councillor King.
Against.
Councillor Lane.
Against.
Councillor Larratt.
Against.
Councillor Malpaz.
Against.
Councillor Brian Markham.
For.
Councillor Mary Markham.
Against.
Councillor Marriott.
For.
Councillor Meredith.
For.
Councillor Nunn.
Against.
Councillor Oldham.
Against.
Councillor Parekh.
Against.
Councillor Patel.
Against.
Councillor Russell.
For.
Councillor Roberts.
For.
Councillor Shaw.
Against.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Stone.
For.
And Councillor Walker.
Against.
We have 18 for, 22 against, and 2 councillors abstained.
Thank you. Move on to motion 2. I invite Jane West to speak on the motion.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Many thanks for allowing me to speak. And I want to speak as a resident of Kingsley and Poets Corner, but I host a lot of people from outside Northampton to Northampton, on and off for about 10 years. I've worked with the national and EU fashion, textiles, footwear, creative industries, and whilst what I'm about to say is probably a little critical, at the same time, I totally understand that this whole issue around cleanliness is, yes, a complex issue. It's multifaceted, but it's now such a long-standing problem that the approaches clearly are just not working. The situation of fly tipping, general rubbish, cleanliness, and actually visual neglect in some parts of the town. Wrong, some of it is looking amazing, people are doing a great job, but it's soul sapping. It affects the well-being of residents. It often impacts the poorer communities more. It affects community pride, and I think we've got to accept it does to an extent affect economic investment. It's totally soul sapping, it's embarrassing, and over the last couple of days, I've had a look at some of the, Route 1 information on this across some of the Facebook, WhatsApp groups in the community. And I'm just going to read you a couple of just comments from the last 2 days. This has been going on for 4 or 5 years now. Okay, so I'm just so depressed and fed up. This just keeps happening. I keep reporting it. The council tax payer keeps paying for it, but nothing gets solved. Today, I walked to my house, across mouldy bread, milk, fruit, and other foods, walked into a swarm of flies. The smell hit me like a ton of bricks. Then I saw maggots. Commercial bins full of rubbish, rubbish dumped on top and on the floor around it. It looks terrible, smells terrible, and clearly Northampton just doesn't seem to care. Another one from today, so sick of the flats at X, dumping everything they don't want when moving in or leaving. It's growing daily. I do keep reporting it. It does get moved, but this is just not being addressed. So, but what I also wanted to do was try and kind of come up with some positive situations. And during COVID, I walked around a lot more than I normally do. So a little bit of observation, but also I've lived here 14 years and the last 4, 5, 6 years have just been awful. So I don't know if you're aware of, there is the National Fly Tipping Prevention Council with a toolkit recognising the complexity with actually a framework for addressing it. There's a really good citizens network in Northampton at the moment. It's functioning really, but I think it perhaps has a limited time frame. As
You've had your 3 minutes, Miss West.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. An amendment has been submitted by Councillor Hallam. Councillor Russell, do you accept the amendment as an alteration?
Yes, I accept the amendment and I'm ready now to put forward the substantive motion.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
Do you accept the a copy of the altered motion has been sent to council? Have you all got it? Because I haven't got it.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yes, happy to accept it.
Councillor Russell to propose the motion as altered.
that is correct.
Thank you.
So I'd like to say thank you to Jane West for taking the trouble to register and come and speak on behalf of the people of Northampton. I'd like to thank the neighbourhood wardens and park wardens for their help and support because whenever I've contacted them, they've always been very happy to help with environmental problems. I'd also like to thank the Cabinet Member for the Environment, who has responded positively whenever I've asked for help. And without his support, we won't be able to move forward on this. If you keep doing the same thing, you keep getting the same result. We can't go on walking through our streets and thinking, oh my goodness me, look at that. Mattresses, overflowing bags, bedroom wardrobes, and furniture that's not being used, white goods, fridges, washing machines, littering our streets. I think I have a number of suggestions that I think I could make, which might be helpful, and hopefully as a group we can move forward with this. I think one of the things that would be very helpful is to try and make the recycling centres more accessible. I know this is an NCC responsibility, but you know, people are queuing for up to an hour in their cars to try and get into the Six Fields recycling centre. So it's not surprising that some of them will just give up and say, put it on the street, the council will come and take it away. And that's the problem. We have become a victim of our own success, because the more we take away, the more it goes out in the streets. But we have to reach a critical crunch point at some stage where the more we take away, there will be less to go on the streets. I don't know if that will ever happen, but this is what goes on now. We need to put extra bins and skips fitted near or placed next to where we know there are fly tipping hotspots around the town and in our wards. I know it's been tried before with some success. So how about an amnesty where the council just trawls through the town and the wards, the outlying areas, and pick up rubbish that's on the streets without charging anybody, and just do this for 3 months and see if that doesn't somehow engender or create more pride in the way our town looks. And I would like, I know there's an initiative at the moment to try and encourage people to be more responsible when they use our parks. And I think that's a really good and positive message, but there needs to be some way of ensuring that people are aware that they just can't do this. On the spot fines is probably the last resort, but it's one that might make people think twice. And in partnership with social media outlets, the local paper, advertising boards, etc., reminding people of the importance of keeping our town clean. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. I call on Councillor Ashraf to second the motion as altered.
Thank you, Mayor. We cannot
Thank
ignore
you.
the fact we are the highest fly tips in the county. But what's happening is our standards. Why are our standards not high enough? There are many legal and illegal HIMOs in the town. Every term, the students or the landlord or the letting agent clear out the HIMOs and leave everything on the pavements. The Labour group has been arguing for landlord service. This would mean the landlord contacts the borough for a small fee and let the borough know when they are emptying properties. Some residents hire a man and a van to do this dispose, and some of the men with vans illegally fly tipping in our area. This is certainly happening in Castle Ward. There is growing criminal activity growing around this area. Some local shops save money by not having a commercial waste contract. They fly tip their waste onto our street. This is illegal, and if they are caught, they are fined. Sorry, bear with me. Some local shops save money by not having commercial waste contracts. The fly tips their waste onto our streets. This is illegal, and if they are caught, they are fined. The recycling centre opening hours, which was already covered by my colleague, is so important that we actually have more access availability. Moving forward, we believe we need a townwide campaign to reach all the communities. We need to improve our relationship with landlords. We need to use all our resources, and we need to aim to be the best in the county. Thank you. I move to vote, agree the vote.
Thank you. Council to debate the motion.
Councillor Meredith is indicating to speak.
Dennis?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm actually glad that this motion with the amended has been put forward. As you know, I represent one of the worst areas for fly tipping. I'll just say, reiterate that one of the worst areas for fly tipping. A few years ago, we carried out what we call was a kangaroo run. And I just want to tell the council about this. And I'm a great believer in this, in what had happened. The kangaroo run, we went down to give people an amnesty to bring out their rubbish, and it was collected. We'd done it on a Sunday morning. And when we carried out that exercise, there wasn't any fly tipping around the area which I represent for at least 3 weeks where we done the kangaroo run. and that was very, very effective. I know that it does cost money, but I think the time now is right to reintroduce this, because the fly tipping is getting out of control. If you come around to my ward, it is absolutely horrendous. Just today, I went to my allotments just today, and when I went into the main gates, there was 3 black bags parked, dumped on Billing Lane, and also down further Billing, a regular fly tipping exercise. And the other thing is they dumped rubbish not so long ago into the allotment because the gates they broke the gates and they dumped it there. And we got evidence that this happened. And do you know, Mr. Mayor, that this they come from Leicester to dump into Northampton? Come from Leicester. There was addresses in Leicester, and I believe the community warden, they're taking out some form of prosecution. But something has got to be done. It's a blight on.
Time's run out, Councillor.
Okay.
Thank you, Dennis.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Hallam has indicated to speak.
Councillor Hallam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really welcome this motion, and our group is supportive of it, because despite all of the work that we've done, it's such a complicated area. We need to do more, and we do need to start to think differently. I agree that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. So what have we done? Well, we've issued more fixed penalty notices than any administration before us. We've done more community work than any administration before us. We were asked to look at reviewing the bulky waste charge. We did, and we reduced it. And we reduced it last year, and I'm pleased to say that we're extending it into this year as well. Not only did we reduce it, but we increased by around 50% the number of slots for booking of bulky waste collections that were available. We've also trialled CCTV ahead of a wider project, which has been agreed with one of the councillors in a certain area. I won't name that for obvious reasons, because we don't want people to know where the cameras were. That was agreed shortly before lockdown, but obviously lockdown has got in the way somewhat. And just to answer Councillor Meredith's point about kangaroo runs, we did actually bring them back towards the end of last year as well. We did 2 or 3 of those, but again, lockdown has curtailed those efforts. And again, with the kangaroo runs, I don't want to sort of actively say where we've been or where we're going to be, because we don't want to attract fly tipping from other area. So despite all of that good work and the hard work from our wardens, the number of incidents of fly tipping has increased. A number of people have mentioned it, but also our stats really show that there's been a lot of larger fly tippets, more sort of commercial size, so building materials, lots of asbestos, which is complicated and difficult. It's not quick to deal with. And that's because of the national trend that's growing of criminal gangs that are actually involved in this fly tipping work, which is why a lot of fly tips appear potentially from other areas, as Councillor Meredith suggested. The BBC has done a whole lot of work on this. If you Google it, if you get a few minutes, have a read, because it's really interesting. So we definitely need the support of the police in this as we move forward. And other agencies have been mentioned already tonight, such as the County Council, but I think the Environment Agency too is somebody that's important to this. It's not just the big agencies though. We really need the support of everybody on the ground, and that's where we really work best. Councillor Russell, you and I had a great result in lockdown with a part of your ward, which wasn't council property. It looked like it was on the highway, but it wasn't. We had a fantastic result in dealing with the company there and getting a solution. So if we can have more of that, that would be fantastic. I've had some, I've had great meetings and discussions over the months and years in individual wards with the likes of Councillor Meredith and Councillor Davenport as well, or Councillor Walker and I were talking about it just earlier today. Also, I'm really open to working with other people as well. So I've had some really good discussions with County Councillor Winston Strachan on this, and similarly with chairs of residents association or friends of park groups, and even like for the new councillors that are going to come on board after the elections next year, and even candidates, I'll welcome anybody as a point on the ground, because you really need that on point information. So what I'm going to be proposing to take this motion forward is that we have a virtual multi-agency meeting, which might be slightly easier to organise everyone together virtually than perhaps in person would be. And some of those councillors, or all of those councillors, anyone for that matter, that has been involved and is actively interested in these things, like Councillor Russell and some of the other councillors that I've mentioned, we can, I'll certainly invite you to attend that as well. And we can start that as a first point of action to have that virtual multi-agency meeting and start to put some of those ideas around. So I certainly welcome councillors' input in that. And if this is approved tonight, we'll get invites sent out in due course. Mr. Mayor, happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hallam. Anybody else wish to speak?
Sally Beardsworth has indicated, Mr. Mayor.
Sally, off you go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say what a wonderful job that the team has done in the town, you know, with grass cutting, clearing up rubbish and things like that. And people say to me about the rubbish, and I said the council doesn't put the rubbish there, it's the people. And if we could only educate them to take it home with them, it would be so much easier. And years ago, and I know I keep bringing this up, but it did work, is we did a thing with the schools that we asked them to name an empty bin, which they called it empty bin. And it was sad because nobody put rubbish in it. And a lot of the children then correct their parents when they do drop litter. So it's a really good way of children telling mum, no, you can't drop that on the floor, mum, you've got to put it in the bin. We go to the park every day to walk, and the amount of litter after a nice evening is unimaginable. It must be soul destroying for the park people who look after it so well. And we've really got to get this message across to the people. It's not the council's main responsibility to get rid of rubbish. It's for you to take it home, recycle it, or put it in landfill, one or the other. And that's the best way to do it. So to work with schools, I think is a really good way forward. If Councillor Hallam is prepared to, I could talk to you about the thing we did years ago, and it really does work.
Thank you, Councillor. Any more?
Nobody else is indicating, Chair.
Thank you. I'll call on Councillor Russell as a mover to exercise a right of reply.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to thank everybody who's contributed to this debate tonight. I think it's very important that the residents of the town realise that it is their responsibility, and if and when we have this meeting that Councillor Hallam talked about, we need to set out some very clear objectives and pathways with which we can determine the best way forward. I loved Councillor Beardsworth's suggestion about the school children and the empty bins, and I think that with some positivity and with some determination and a solid nudging of reminding our residents of the importance of keeping our town clean, I think we can start to move forward. And I certainly hope that in the next 6 months or so, we'll see a big difference in the way our town looks. Thank you.
I need a vote on this. Are we all in agreement on this one?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Motion 3. An amendment has been submitted by Councillor Stone. Councillor King, do you accept the amendment as an alteration?
Yes, happy to accept, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Do you accept the alteration, Council? A copy of the altered motion is being sent to Council. I assume you've all got them.
Agreed.
Yes, agreed.
Agreed.
Good. Councillor King to propose.
Yeah,
Councillor Nunn to second. Carry on.
Happy to propose the amended motion to read, this council recognises the importance of Northampton's arts and cultural sector as the soul of Northampton, and will work with our Conservative MPs and central government to access Northampton's portion of the record-breaking national support package. The biggest ever one-off investment in UK culture. This will not only help to secure local jobs, but also mean that iconic venues can weather the storm created by coronavirus and come back stronger and continue to be there for local residents and future generations to enjoy. This council will work tirelessly to ensure that the sector emerges from the crisis by continuing to invest in the work of our heritage, culture and communities. We note that it is our function to interface with our MPs in the interest of our communities and for the protection and development of our arts infrastructure. We further note any monies coming forward from central government will need to be supported with a strategic plan for arts to ensure a longer term future for the arts in the town. We urge Overview and Scrutiny to pursue that this will happen in due speed. And to add to that, I'd also just like to remind people on the 17th of February, the Arts Council England awarded us £20,000 to create a culture board for Northampton. So this is already in place. So we're one step ahead slightly of what the motion actually reads. We want Northampton to be a place that people want to live, work and study in. We want to attract world-class talent. And we want to promote Northampton as a visitor destination. We're already extremely proud to be able to support Northampton Film House and Delaphree Abbey to start their drive-in film time, which starts on Thursday of this week and runs until Sunday the 9th of August. NBC have been a great supporter in this project and we hope it's a great success for the town. In addition to that, we also work in partnership and support with some of these organisations, Looking Glass, Delaphree Theatre, the Mars Theatre, and Contemporary, the Decos, Green Northants, Watson Hall, 78 Derngate, and of course, not to forget, the £1 million investment that we've just put for the new museum, which will hopefully be opening later on this year. So happy to propose the amended motion.
Call on Councillor Nunn to second the motion as altered.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very happy to second this. Such an important area of the life of our town and the future life of our town. We talked earlier about MPs stepping up to the plate and supporting, and I'm delighted to confirm that both MPs have written to me, both Northampton North and Northampton South MPs have written to me to confirm their absolute commitment to support what we're looking to do here, and they do that. They do that in the Down in London. That's where we need their support to make things like this happen. Councillor King has mentioned the Arts Council support for the Cultural Compact, which will and already is starting to deliver a cultural strategy. Naturally, Overview and Scrutiny, like anything else, very happy to take a look at that, but that work is already underway. And in fact, that's that same relationship with Arts Council England, mainly through the Chief Executive and the Chief Executive of the Royal and Derngate, that has delivered recently significant Arts Council support for the Royal and Derngate to see them through this very difficult period of the lockdown. So I'm delighted to second the motion, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I throw the motion open for debate.
Councillor Stone is indicating to speak.
Councillor Stone.
Thank you very much. This is so important, isn't it? It would be an absolute tragedy if by default we allowed our cultural industries to go to the wall. And they've had such a terrible, terrible time over COVID having to close. And I don't know if you've seen the workshops that they've been doing what the Derngate has been doing online. They've been absolutely amazing and very engaging with lots of young people. Theatres and museums and cinemas are not just about entertainment, are they? They are really important because they are about entertainment, but they're also the workplace for many, many people. And I would like to see a lot more apprenticeships going in the arts. But I think overall, what we need is not just government investment. What we need is a local strategy so that we can encourage more and more people to use our art spaces. We can encourage more and more people to use their creative endeavours in a public way. We can involve more and more young people in getting apprenticeships in the industry, and we can encourage a lot more employment in the industry. The motion is right. Arts and culture are the soul of the town. It's really, really important that we all fight really, really hard to make sure that our arts outlets are really successful. Please support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Beers, was it?
Mr. Mayor, the
So,
vote
Councillor
is-
Meredith. Far away, Dennis.
Yeah, can we move to the vote?
You want to move to
Can
the
we
vote,
move to the
right?
vote?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Councillor
please.
King has the right to reply.
Thank you for
Councillor
your,
King?
yeah, thank you for your support, Councillor Stone. And I'd just like to say, I think all of us are Northampton proud. Celebrate Northampton and let's move to the vote.
Vote needed.
Agreed.
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 Brilliant. 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 So we're on motion 4. Pass. We're on motion 4. Ruth Hemingway to speak on this motion.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak. My name
Hello,
is
Ruth.
Ruth. My
Hello.
name is Ruth and I live in Abington. I'm here as a representative of Extinction Rebellion Northampton. I was shocked to see this motion that the council will be supporting the County Council's decision to develop the North West Release Road and the Northern Orbital Road. Should this road be built, then it is extremely unlikely this council will be able to meet its own net zero carbon target. This hardly looks like action under a climate emergency. It would be appropriate in an emergency to investigate all public transport options, including trams, trains, increased bus routes and cycling. Since 60% of journeys start and finish within the borough, and if all of these were on public transport, it would halve congestion. In addition, with so many office workers looking to work from home permanently, this in itself will cut congestion. Now is not the right time to be making such a big decision on congestion, as proper investigation of changing working methods have not been investigated. There is no need to waste money building a road not needed. Instead, put the same money into developing public transport and sustainable options. We need to get away from car-based transport. Last year, this council said it wanted a transport system to mirror Amsterdam. These are your own words. How is paving over the countryside going to do that? Lastly, you're giving something for Extinction Rebellion to focus on. Members of XR Northampton flew drones at Heathrow and the extension was cancelled. They also protested at a coal mine in Durham, extension cancelled. Direct action works. Why would you want to give us the opportunity to prove this so close to home? Please do not support the development of the Northwest Release Road and the Northern Orbital Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you. I call on Councillor Larritt to propose the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to
Councillor Larritt, you've gone on to mute.
my apologies, my keeps changing me. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to present this motion tonight, propose it. I think it's been the policy of this council for a long time to support the Northern Orbital Road. We're looking to see a dual carriageway, grade separated road around the north of Northampton, and I think we need that as soon as possible. The reason I brought this motion tonight, Mr. Mayor, is because when I sat at in the planning committee the other day, and I fully committee in the road that they've gone down, the county council officer who was there said
We've lost you, Councillor.
Yeah, unfortunately, Councillor Larritt's left the meeting. As soon as he
Press the wrong
comes into the
button.
waiting room, we'll readmit him.
Okay, okay. It's not community singing time then.
my internet keeps dropping out, so my apologies for that. I don't know
Pleased
if
to
you
see
can
you
hear
back,
me
Councillor.
now. Sorry. Yeah. The planning committee, in the planning committee, the county council officer made it clear that they were considering the Northern Relief Road as a standalone scheme. But it's been the view of this authority that the road is only a part of the overall scheme that is required, the overall infrastructure that is required to support the north of Northampton. We already have massive problems in the area, and to do nothing is not an option. Mr. Mayor, we're seeing money being invested in the dualling of the A43 from Kettering to Northampton. 2 phases are complete. There's another one about to start, and SEMLEP are looking to fund even more of it. So we're going to end up with a dual carriageway running from the A14 to round Spinney. Are we saying that the only way through Northampton for that traffic is down Lumbertubs Way and up Nen Valley Way? We've already got businesses on Brackmills complaining about the volume of traffic, saying that they're unable to operate and maintain delivery schedules on the basis of the traffic congestion that exists. We need to relieve the A45 and to enable businesses to have better guarantee of delivery slots and be able to operate their logistics effectively. The Northern Orbital Road will allow for further development in that area. We're seeing a massive development, particularly in the area of Malton, and that is just going to add more and more and more to the problems that already exist. I'm sure Councillor Aziz will refer to the impact on the community. But as I said for a long time, this Northern Relief Road is nothing but a Brampton bypass. That's all it is, although it does facilitate the Dallington and King's Heath development. But at the end of the day, it's not a standalone scheme. It must be a scheme that is part of an overall scheme for the north of Northampton. The residents of the area need it. We need it to ensure the economy of the town. And I think we need to send a clear and simple message tonight from this council saying you can't have one without the other. And that's the reason for this motion tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Zid, seconding the motion. Councillor Aziz.
Councillor Aziz, you're still on mute.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me?
That's better. Hi.
Yes. Hello. Yes. Constituent of Spring Park, already suffering traffic in Kingsthorpe area for a long time, and adding this Northwest Relief Road, it will create more traffic. Some road will make more dangerous, and they proved it by doing a survey by Whitehill Resident Association, they submitted their reports to the local authorities. So only way forward this is to make traffic better in Kingsthorpe, in whole town, to develop Northern Orbital Road, to deliver as a matter of urgency to support Northwest Relief Road. And I'm happy to second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zid. Councillor Birch to propose an amendment. And Councillor Joyce to second. Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We would support the thinking behind both roads together, not one and then the other. We need the Northwest Relief Road and the orbital route to join up. But we want to make this a better motion. We want to improve these roads. And as our speaker, Ruth Hemingway, has said, we need to mitigate the environmental impact of the traffic. The plans for the Northwest Relief Road and the orbital route have been under discussion for years. And as far as I can see, the only minor changes have been made. We're moving forward with proposals which do not address the needs of the moment. An integrated transport plan for Northampton and the surrounding areas should be developed with emphasis on mitigating the environmental impact and improving air quality for the residents of Northampton. There are no proposed safe routes and crossings for cyclists and walkers. This is vital as parts of this road gives access to the open countryside. A tramway system should be investigated running on the disused rail track to take passengers from Market Harborough into Northampton, reducing congestion and air pollution in Mill Lane and Kingsthorpe. We need the two roads to be opened at the same time, and we need better roads, fit for purpose, and to mitigate the noise, traffic pollution and environmental impact to surrounding areas, to ideally be dual carriageways and to be part of an integrated transport system to alleviate the congestion in the town, improve air quality for all the residents. I hope you'll accept this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Joyce?
Yeah, I'm happy to second the amendment. Whether we like it or not, there will be an environmental impact with the construction of this Relief Road and Orbital Road. We need to closely monitor the impact of on our local wildlife habitats and our ecosystems and what our final human footprint will be. Cycle lanes and tracks are needed, service areas with multiple electric charging points, bus lanes and tramways needed to be explored. Investment in the green rapid transport systems are needed as soon as possible, sooner rather than later. We need to ensure that two roads are green and future-proofed for today and future generations. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Open debate on amendment.
We have councillors Bearsworth, Smith, Nunn and Stone all indicating to speak, and Brian Oldham.
Councillor Bearsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. Can I say that this Relief Road is going to be an absolute disaster for Kingsthorpe. Kingsthorpe Cockhotel Junction is already at over 130% occupancy for traffic. The air pollution in that corridor is one of the highest in the country. People are up in arms about it. People have done traffic surveys. Spring Park and White Hills Residents Association have done a huge amount of work on this proposal, and it's going to cost people, well, it's going to affect their lives, their health and their livelihoods, because it will be almost unbearable to be coming along that area. They're building houses all along that area. The only people that will profit out of this are the people that have got land that the road will come across. They're the only people that I can see have profited out of this situation. And a lot of people in Kingsthorpe are totally and absolutely against the Relief Road. Even with the Orbital Road, it's going to be very, very difficult for people to get through Kingsthorpe, and it's going to be a gridlock. Can I also say, we've just come out of COVID-19. How many people in the future will be working from home? How many people will be happy to stay at home to save them their commute to work? How many people will be able to get off the roads permanently to alleviate the traffic? Trams, we used to have trams in Northampton 50 years ago. Why don't we have them now? We really have to be looking and thinking differently about what's going to happen after COVID-19. And this will give us a golden opportunity to put things right and to make things better, because people don't always want to get in a car and sit in a traffic jam for hours, and that's what will happen. I don't support the motion in the sense that I don't think either road should be done at this moment in time, because I think it's going to be a problem all the way through. The Orbital Road should go first if it does anything at all. But other than that, I think really true, the people of Kingsthorpe are so unhappy about this. I'd be wrong as a councillor to support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bearsworth. Who's next, Tracy?
You've got Councillor Smith, then Councillor Nunn, then Councillor Stone, then Councillor Larratt.
No, right. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's really important that we recognise that mere months ago we declared a climate emergency in the Borough Council. We all committed to making that a reality and not just a token gesture. We've had committees set up that are trying to deal with it. We've got people working really hard to look at what the future is for Northampton. And that's one of the commitments we made there, and one of the commitments we've come back to over and over again, is that no decision in the council will be taken without considering the climate emergency, without looking at the environmental impact. And what this motion does unamended is to just suggest approval of a road with no consideration for environmental mitigation, no consideration of whether it's something that will help the congestion or harm it, no consideration of what will actively improve the environment in Northampton and the environment around Kingsthorpe particularly. And what the amendment offers is an opportunity to look at the environmental mitigation, to look at ways that we can improve it, and to actually do something really positive. So I would really urge people to support the amendment, which allows us to recognise the importance of environmental mitigation and abide by the commitment that we made, and that we're all supposed to be working really hard towards supporting.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Nunn?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, it's an interesting time. There's some, if I may say so, Councillor Beards would agree with so many things you say. But there's a dilemma between there'll be so many people working from home versus there's going to be far too much traffic. So we just don't know how things will change. What we do know is we need an integrated approach to traffic, and that's why we are supporting the County Council, who are currently commissioning a strategic infrastructure plan that looks carefully at what that requirement is. It goes way beyond the active travel initiatives that are currently being installed, and looks properly at what our future transport needs will be and how we can encourage those modal shifts that are consistent with our 2030 commitment. But what we're not here to do, I don't think, is to overturn a planning decision. Our committees make decisions, and those decisions stand. We might comment on them, we might like them, we might not like them. We have a committee system, and we cannot bring every decision that we don't like back to this. The planning committee has been consulted on this by the County Council, and it has made its view known. What we do also know is that we currently have some control over our development. And the 3,000 homes that are to be built at Dallington, we may or may not like. We probably universally accept that the Northwest Relief Road will not bring adequate relief to travel unless a huge number of people who buy those homes work from home or cycle, far more than current homeowners tend to. Let's hope they do. We will do everything to encourage them. But right at the moment, the 3,000 homes are to be built, and it is anticipated, or it might be anticipated, they will continue to use cars. If they do, the relief will not be adequate from the Northwest Relief Road, and the Northern Orbital needs to be in place to assume that need for traffic relief and that need of pollution relief. We know at peak times the queues into Northampton go all the way back to Pittsford, and it's an hour and a half trip often in from Brixworth. So that shows you the amount of smoking cars that sit in queues there. But we do know if the 3,000 homes that this road facilitates, and that cannot be built without it, if we choose to go back on all those planning decisions, we are likely to lose control of much of our planning. Our delivery targets in the Northampton related development area are pretty tough, and there is significant risk that we will fall behind those. And if you think any of these are inappropriate, you wait to see the inappropriate development come forward. I might say Buckton Fields, phase 4, phase 5, phase 6, phase 7, who knows? Where we stand at the moment is we do need an orbital road. Let's hope we change behaviour. Let's hope the Northwest Release Road is still quiet even when all the houses are built, and let's hope that perhaps we won't need the orbital road. At the moment, we absolutely do. And it is important to link both together. As part of that, I've made it my business to continue dialogue with the County Council, most particularly with this motion in mind. I had a conversation this morning with the Chief Executive of the County Council. Made it clear to her that we felt that this was a really important thing. She understands that. Her comment to me is it needs to be formally adopted into documents. Now, of course, our local plan part 2 will be not just adopted by the council, but will be adopted in law. So it's good to know that as we stand at the moment, the movement chapter of the current round 2 consultation, the proposed submission version of the local plan part 2 mentions a paragraph. Within the paragraph on managing an effective network, it mentions the orbital road. That needs to be adopted so that the County Council can seek funding or direct funding towards pursuing the the Orbital Road. It's also worth noting the Orbital was also the subject of a consultation question in the issues consultation for the West North Hampshire Strategic Plan from August, and that was produced by the West North Hampshire Joint Planning Unit last year, and that reads, should the plan consider the potential to deliver the Northern Orbital Road and the North-South Rail, which is a further thing in that area. Finally, the West Northants Infrastructure Delivery Plan mentions it in one of its paragraphs. The real issue here is what we should be saying is both are needed as it stands at the moment, despite all our efforts to change behaviour. The pollution in that area will not be relieved unless something significant happens. At this point, that requires the Orbital to move forward. What we are therefore concerned about is we get the Orbital firmly within the adopted local plan part 2 in order that the county council can leverage in the very significant amount of money that they may themselves find, or they may need to go looking to SEMLEP or elsewhere, so that they can invest in that next phase. And that to me is the key thing. What this motion is saying is that should be adopted within the local plan part 2. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Stone?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The administration haven't indicated whether they're going to be accepting the amendment or not, and I take that really seriously. I think we need to move way beyond having development that is piecemeal and sits on its own. We need integrated development. We are a growing town. We're growing faster than most other places in the UK. We need to get the infrastructure right, and it needs to work for everybody. And what Councillor Smith said, and what Ruth Hemingway said about the environment, it's absolutely crucial. We cannot go on in a situation where we know people who live near the Cock Inn Hotel in Kingsthorpe are suffering from really poor air quality and getting ill and meeting an early death as a consequence. We know that is going on, and something has got to happen. We cannot go on planning roads without it sitting within an integrated transport system where we give every encouragement for why people should not use roads but should use alternatives. We can't wait on the day when everybody works from home. It's not going to happen like that, is it? If we need these roads, then we need it to be located within an integrated transport plan. We need a lot of public transport to be available. We need safe cycling routes, and we need safe pedestrian routes. We need to have really tough targets for reducing air pollution, and we need to make it work for everybody. That's why I would call on everybody, please support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Brian Markham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important, as Councillor Stone said, the administration say whether they're supporting the amendment or not, because to my mind, the amendment is the important part of the motion. The planning committee, not popular probably with other councillors for going along with the county council and not objecting to this relief road. But the planning committee did make it clear that they felt other things were important as well, not least the northwest bypass, if you want to call it that. Now, I think the whole issue with the so-called Northwest Relief Road is to do with its name. It's no such thing. It doesn't offer any relief to transport problems that currently exist before those 3,000 houses are built in Kingsthorpe. It is no more than what is basically needed to build those 3,000 homes around Dallington Grange and etc., and connecting up with Harleston Road. It is an estate road. It is a facility to allow those people who will live there to get to work. And it's clear, and it's been in the local plans for years, that those houses are needed. And I would remind this council that I think previous leader of this council said there are well over 100 affordable homes for rent that this council is planning to build relating to this relief road. There are schools, there are other facilities that won't happen without this road being built. But everybody's right, it doesn't solve a single thing when it comes to, doesn't solve anything whatsoever when it comes to dealing with the problems of Kingsthorpe, and therefore the amendment is needed to deal with those problems that will happen and exist already. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Oldham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just say that I thoroughly agree with what the motion that Councillor Harris put forward, and I totally agree with what Councillor Nunn said in his support of it. And with regards to the fact of the air pollution and the noise and the impacts on the amenity, that was in the principles, one of the three main principles that were touched on, and it was mentioned, and it's been put forward to the county council that it's got to take into consideration the air quality, the flood risk, the drainage, the biodiversity, the noise, and the impacts on the amenity. So that is in there. That's what we put through. And also, I can't support Councillor Larratt and Councillor Nunn more than enough. They know me, and I've been on about these two roads for years, absolutely for years. And I do support the motion. One road is no good without the other, and we can't stand still, and we can't have one in isolation. So we've got to have both roads. It was debated fully at planning committee, and I have said whenever these two roads or one road's come up before, I've never changed my thoughts on it. We need them both, and I've also got a letter, or agreed to have a letter sent to the county council to back this up. So I'm more than happy that we're saying all we can say and need to say, that the county council should take very serious note of what we are saying from the Borough Planning Committee and this council as a whole. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Oldham. We need a vote on this.
Councillor Malpass is indicating to speak.
Councillor Malpass, and then we have Councillor Larratt to respond to the amendment.
Right. I'm all in favour for the main amendment, Mr. Mayor. It's just that you're going on about public transport and improving it, and it was mentioned that trams were about 50 years ago we had them. The last tram in Northampton actually run in 1934, well before any of our time, I'm sure. And if we're going to have trams, it's going to be an awful lot of infrastructure to put in when we could just have a better bus service.
Correct. Councillor Larratt, respond to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to say that I do wholeheartedly agree with most of what's been said by people supporting the amendment. But we have to remember, Mr. Mayor, where we are. We are in the position where the planning committee has been consulted. It has responded to a planning application submitted to the county council. And what this motion seems is to do is to reiterate the comments of the planning committee to the county council. The county council are going to be debating and discussing the application. I believe it's at the beginning of August, and I think you'll probably see shovels in the ground very, very quickly after that, once the planning application has been approved. We're not talking, we haven't got long to deal with this. So I think it's important, and what the objective of this motion is the motion is to get the message to the county council that one scheme cannot be considered without the other. It's imperative that both schemes are considered. And I think, while having a lot of sympathy with the amendment and liking a lot of what's said in the amendment, that is talking about how we do it, how we go about it. And I totally agree. that we need to give that consideration, but I don't think this is the right time to consider the how to get that delivered. I think we should perhaps come back at the next meeting with an agreed policy, an agreed strategy as to how we can oversee and get that road developed. I mean, you know, we can talk about trams. There's already a process and a proposal for the Northampton to Market Harborough railway line to be reopened. We need to look at it all in the round. So I don't support the amendment tonight, but I would welcome a motion coming forward to do what the amendment is proposing in due course. The key priority is let's get the message to the county. You can't consider one without the other. So I oppose the amendment.
Vote for amendment is now needed. Do we agree the amendment?
No.
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 Mr. Mayor,
No.
because
Do we need
Francis
it
Fernandez-
recorded?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Francis Fernandez, I mean, it's a choice for council whether you decide whether you want a recorded vote. But if you want to do a normal vote, I'd ask for hands to go up for, against, abstentions in that order. But
Okay.
if councillors do want a recorded vote, then if 5 of you ask for one, you can have one.
I think we need a recorded vote on this. It's a very important matter, which is affecting, well, hundreds of years to the future, if we're lucky.
That's supported by other councillors. I need 4 more. 1, 2, have we got 4? I've got.
Mr. Mayor, it's probably quicker to take a recorded vote on the amendment and then just have we probably, depending on what happens with the amendment, we can probably just agree the motion.
Yeah, whether it's substantiated or not. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, enough people have indicated for a recorded vote. So
Okay.
we can
Yeah.
go to a recorded
Yeah.
vote.
It's too important not to.
Would you like me to call the names out, Mr. Mayor?
If you would, Ma'am.
Yourself?
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Ashraf?
4.
4. Councillor Ansell?
4.
Councillor Ansell?
Mr. Mayor, would it be a good idea to remind people to unmute?
It's a good idea.
I think council the meeting, I think he got booted out. He couldn't get back in after 10 attempts or something.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Aziz?
Are we voting for amendments or actual motion?
4.
It's the amendment.
Against.
Against. Councillor Beardsworth?
For the amendment.
4. Councillor Birch?
4.
Councillor Botwood?
Against.
Councillor Carley?
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Chowdhury? Councillor Chowdhury?
Mr. Mayor, I think Councillor Chowdhury has an interest.
Right, okay.
The Chunga?
Definitely.
Councillor Chunga? Councillor Chunga's still on mute.
Councillor
For
Chunga.
For amendment.
4. Councillor Davenport? Against. Councillor Duffy?
4.
4. Councillor Gareth Eels?
4.
Councillor Terry Eels?
4.
Councillor Eldred?
Against.
Councillor Golby?
Against.
Councillor Greystone?
Against.
Councillor Hadland?
Against.
Councillor Hallam?
That's against.
Against. Councillor Hack.
For.
Councillor Hibbert.
Against.
Councillor Hill.
Against.
Councillor Joyce.
For.
Councillor Kilbride.
Against.
Councillor King.
Against.
Councillor Lane.
Against.
Councillor Larratt.
Against.
Councillor Malpaz.
Against.
Councillor Brian Markham.
For.
Councillor Mary Markham.
Against.
Councillor Marriott.
For.
Councillor Meredith.
For.
Councillor Nunn.
Against.
Councillor Oldham.
Against.
Councillor Perek.
Against.
Against. Councillor Patel.
Against.
Councillor Russell.
For.
Councillor Roberts.
For.
Councillor Kilby-Shaw. Councillor Kilby-Shaw. I think Councillor Kilby-Shaw may have left the meeting. Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Stone.
For.
Councillor Walker.
Against.
We have 16 for, 21 against, and 2 councillors abstained.
Vote not agreed, so it's owned by Councillor Larratt and gets debated, and we were given the right to reply. I'll call on the council to debate the motion. Are there any speakers?
Yes,
Nobody.
Chair. Yes, Chair, I'll just come in on this one very quickly, if
Go
I
on
may,
then,
Councillor
Councillor.
Mills. If I thought for one moment that we'd get the orbital road done at the same time as the relief road, I would happily support that in the sense that it was, say, a little bit of congestion in Kingsthorpe. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think there's going to be the finances to do it. And I really think we need to look at a fresh approach. I'm very, very worried about the impact it's going to have on Kingsthorpe, of the whole of that area. And people are very, very well upset about it. And I think we really do need to rethink how we transport people about at this present time, rather than relying on the motor car all the time.
Thank you, Councillor. Any more speakers? Councillor Larratt,
Councillor
right to
Stone.
reply.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Stone.
I don't think it's possible for us to vote for this motion without any environmental mitigations and without it being located within an integrated transport policy. We cannot afford to get huge
Use different colour.
development of this sort wrong. And we need more time, it seems to me, to make sure that we get it right. We cannot afford to have more air pollution affecting more people. We need to have all the mitigations in place before we embark on this project. My group will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else? Councillor Larratt, right to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry that people don't feel they can support this motion. It is reiterating what has been the policy of this council for a long time, and policy that I thought had all party support. I hear what Councillor Beardsworth says, and I wouldn't be bringing this motion if I didn't think if I thought it was detrimental to the people of Kingsthorpe. The need for the Northern Orbital Road is for the people of Kingsthorpe, who have suffered long enough. And it's time we saw some mitigation and some action to protect them from the traffic density, the traffic volumes, and the air quality that they're currently suffering. And that's why I brought this motion. I agree that we need to look at the environmental issues. We need to look at the air quality issues. And I think, as I said it when I spoke earlier, it was great to have another motion come forward, and perhaps we can discuss it and come to some sort of consensus before the next meeting of this council, to bring that forward to discuss how we deliver what it is that we want. But we can't have a relief road that, as I say, is going to be looked at by the county council in a matter of weeks and is likely to be approved. If it is approved, as I say, you'll see shovels in the ground imminently in order to open up that land for development. It's going to happen, but we need the Northern Orbital. Let's, I would say vote for this motion, send out the clear signal. You can't have the relief road without the orbital, and then let's come back and have a debate on how we deliver both in a green and efficient way while delivering for the people of Kingsthorpe. Let's do that, and I fully support the motion and ask the council to support.
Thank you, Councillor. There's a vote needed. Are we doing the same as we did before? Have we got anybody who, have we got the 5 to have a name vote?
Agreed.
5 hands are in the air.
Okay, name vote again.
Yourself, Mayor, how are you voting?
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Ashraf?
Abstain.
Councillor Ansell's left the meeting. Councillor Aziz?
For.
Councillor Beardsworth?
Against.
Councillor Birch?
Abstain.
Pardon?
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Botwood?
For.
Councillor Carley? Councillor Carley? I think Councillor Carley may have left the meeting. We can't see her on screen. Councillor Chowdhury?
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Chunga?
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Davenport? I think Councillor Davenport's also left the meeting. Councillor Duffy?
Abstain.
Councillor Gareth Eales?
Abstain.
Councillor Terry Eales?
Abstain.
Councillor Eldred?
Sorry, 4.
Councillor Golby?
4.
Councillor Greystone?
4.
Councillor Hadland?
Sorry, 4.
Councillor Hallam?
4.
Councillor Hack?
Abstain.
Councillor Hibbert?
4.
Councillor Hill?
4.
Councillor Joyce?
Abstain.
The Kilbride?
4.
Councillor King?
4.
Councillor Lane?
4.
Councillor Larratt?
4.
Councillor Malpaz?
4.
Councillor Brian Markham?
Abstain.
Councillor Mary Markham?
4.
Councillor Marriott?
Abstain.
Councillor Meredith? You're on mute, Councillor Meredith.
Sorry, abstain.
Councillor Nunn,
4.
Councillor Oldham,
4.
Councillor Perrett,
4.
Councillor Patel,
4.
Councillor Russell,
Abstain.
Councillor Roberts,
Abstain.
Councillor Kilby Shaw. He's not present. Councillor Smith,
Abstain.
Councillor Stone,
Abstain.
Councillor Walker,
4.
um, 20 voted for, 17 abstained, and 1 voted against.
Thank you. That's passing. Item 13, that's a good number. Matters of urgency. There's no matters of urgency, but I've been out litter picking over the past few days and the last few weeks, and there's so many voluntary litter pickers. I think the owner should be paying us. We're so good. We do the little bits, not the big bits, the little bits. I'd like to thank all volunteers, and I'm sure all you councillors will be out doing your bit at one time or another while we've got the weather. I thank you all for your attendance tonight. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.